Okay, before we get going tonight, there's going to be a presentation on organ donation education. Oddly enough, it's a state law that the Board of Education has to allow this. So it's good information, but just it's funny that the legislature thought it was important enough to actually put this in state law. So and the legislator tells us it has to be up to 30 minutes. So hopefully you're not taking 30 minutes, right?
I will not. Well, we welcome you.
Thank you.
All right, in all seriousness, let's call the meeting to order. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I need a motion to approve and adopt the agenda.
So moved. Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Make a note that all 7 of us are here. I forgot to do that. MSBA board meeting review, Amy, please.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Missouri School Boards Association's board report for the month of April. We thank you for the opportunity to share some news and information during a few minutes of your board meeting. We begin with a look at the issue of teacher recruitment and retention in Missouri. As we have reported previously, school boards and administrators throughout the state continue to grapple with a teacher shortage that has reached a crisis level in our state. Too few young people are entering the teaching profession, and too many teachers are leaving the profession early in their careers. The State Board of Education has formed a Blue Ribbon Commission to address the problem, including the issue of teacher salaries in Missouri. The 17-member commission includes 5 business leaders. Commissioner of Education Margie Van Dieven says that's by design.
We know that we need to raise teacher salaries. We know that we need to work on some of the conditions, and we've put to keep teachers' retention efforts, to keep them in our schools, and we've been outlining those. But we really need the business community to be the ones who are carrying that charge, or it looks self-serving. If we go over and say we need a teacher increase, it looks like we're trying to self-serve. This is an economic issue for this entire state, and if our business leaders can find and help find a dedicated funding source, we need their assistance in doing so.
Van Dieven made her remarks during MSBA's recent legislative forum in Jefferson City. The goal of the commission is to develop a set of recommendations and clear action steps that address teacher recruitment and retention solutions. The MSBA Legislative Forum held last month included presentations on several legislative issues now before the Missouri General Assembly as it heads for its May adjournment. The event also included a student showcase at the Capitol where students from school districts throughout the state were on hand to discuss and demonstrate innovative programs in their districts. Governor Parson was among those who visited with the students. MSBA Executive Director Melissa Randall told school board members and administrators who visited the Capitol it's critical to tell the accurate story about the public schools of Missouri.
We've heard it said over and over and over again today that is our primary responsibility right now, is to get our story told and to drown out the inaccurate information that's out there. Not let it divide us. This is a time we have to be united and we have to be laser focused on our children. They need us more now than ever as they recover from the experiences they've had these past 2 years too. And our teachers, we know they're hurting as well. Laser focused on supporting great teachers in every classroom for every child.
Besides attending the student showcase, school board members and administrators had the opportunity to visit with their legislators at the Capitol during the legislative forum. If you were elected to your school board for the first time this month, welcome to school board service. Missouri law requires all school board members to receive 18.5 hours of training within their first 12 months of service. MSBA's CBM Essential Board Member Training fulfills this requirement and provides the foundation for becoming an effective school board member. The training is free for all new board members. Check the MSBA website for a schedule of the training opportunities along with registration information. Make your plans now to attend MSBA's Igniting Great Ideas Summit June 11th and 12th in St. Charles. It's a great opportunity to participate in valuable leadership sessions and to connect with your colleagues from school districts throughout the state. Also, be sure your board is represented at the June Delegate Assembly to be held in conjunction with the Great Ideas Summit. Delegates will be electing state officers for the coming year at that meeting. The nominating committee is proposing a slate of officers for consideration, including the offices of President-elect and Vice President. That's it for this month's edition of the MSBA Board Report. Thanks for allowing us to have some time at your board meeting, and so long from Columbia.
Okay, any comments on the board meeting review? Okay, next item on the agenda is Learn Life Savers Organ Donation Education. Dr. Berger?
Yeah, I'll introduce our guest and get to meet her for the first time, but we've been corresponding for
Yes.
a long time.
Yes.
So
We're
we've
both
got,
very flexible.
yeah, thank you for being so. So yeah, please, the floor is yours. And
All right. Good evening, everyone. Mr. Wade, do you mind if I put some papers here? All right, thank you. You are correct. It is a bill, it is a law that Learn Lifesavers is allowed to do up to 30 minutes to a school board presentation. I promise you, I will be brief, okay? I know you have a lot of important things on your agenda, but feel free to ask me any questions as we go along. And even though it is required for us to speak, it is not required for you all to implement our program. So I make that very clear. You all will get to vote on it to see if it's right for your students, your families, your community. So I make that very clear. So we'll go ahead and get started. I'm Susie Ward, and I work for Gift of Life, and it's a nonprofit organization, and it's been around for about 25 years. And the whole purpose is to educate high school students so when they get their state ID, driver's permit, or driver's license, they go to the DMV office, they're asked the question, do you want to be registered as a deceased donor? Most young adults have never had a conversation, what does that question really mean? And some adults aren't even quite sure what that really means. So they're basically saying if I would pass away and I'd signed up that I want to be a deceased donor, that after a team of doctors declared that I am brain dead, I'm sorry for being morbid, but life gets messy sometimes. So I pass away, they're going to see that on my driver's license, and there's a database that's going to show that I'm a registered donor. Then they will ask my family, do you consent and will you follow your daughter's wishes of being a deceased donor? If you've never had a conversation with your family, you're already traumatized by the death of someone, and to have that question, and you may be not quite sure what my wishes are. So it's really important is, since these are high school students, they will be considered a minor until their age of 18. So if something sadly happened to somebody in another state, none of your kids, and they had signed yes, but they've never had a conversation with you all, you may say, I don't think Susie knew what she was signing and saying yes to. We're not comfortable, we're just going to say no. Even though I felt comfortable with it, it's a missed opportunity. So we just encourage you to have this program because we separate the myth from the facts of what you may see on Grey's Anatomy or Netflix movies and things like that. There's a lot of myths out there, and our whole program, again, is not to persuade somebody to say yes, to be enlightened, to be educated, and have that conversation with the loved ones so you know what their wishes are, but also they know what your wishes are. So we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you. The nice thing is it's an online program. It's free. It's 30 minutes. And a little bit later on, you'll see how it's tied to many of the curriculum. I was in Winsville last week at Timberland High School. I spoke to the 9th grade health grade classes. It was like 163 students. They like half-hour presentation. So we can do it in person, and I'd love to do it. We also have an online program that can fit the teacher's schedule, and it has all the resources and also has some videos. To show how important it is, I want to show who all is involved on this committee. So it's Gift Alive. It's also DESE has people on this advisory committee. The Department of Health and Senior Services, which is the Governor's Oregon Donation Advisory Committee, or GODOC, since we all like acronyms, is Mid-America Transplant, Midwest Transplant Network, Missouri Kidney Program, and Missouri School Board Association. So they're all on board on getting this word out, not just to some students, but every student throughout the entire state of Missouri feel it's important information. And the reason why we do it, because nationwide there's 100,000 people that wake up every day praying to get a phone call that they're going to get a life-saving organ transplant. It could be a liver, it could be a kidney, it could be a heart. And sadly, in Missouri, there's 1,200 people who are on that waiting list. So Busch Stadium holds about 45,000 people. So I think about that sometimes. For the 100,000 people, it'd take over 2 Busch Stadiums filled with those people waiting for an organ to fill up the stadium. Again, sadly, every 10 minutes, by the time I get done talking, hopefully it's closer to 10 versus 2 people, another person is added to the waiting list. And as it says here, it's just a free online program, teacher guide, and we provide all the resources. I thank you. Next. Okay, the 30-minute program is divided into 8 steps. We have some questions that just kind of pump the prime, get the kids a little, some questions. We have a video that has some students that received a life-saving organ. We have some quizzes that are very simple. Basically, the question might be, is it illegal in the United States to buy and sell organs? True or false? We obviously know it is completely illegal. Another question might be, you cannot have an open casket if you were an organ donor. That is also false. You can have an open casket. And I can go on if people have more questions, but we'll go on to the next slide. In there, there's like 2 videos. We're not going to show you the videos. And then there's just some performance metrics, because we want some data to see, is our program having any impact? We know it is. We also know school boards and other people want to know what is the success of this program. So we have the students do a very short 5-question survey. We did not want to know their name. We did not want to know the classroom teacher. They'll just say, after hearing this presentation, are you considering to be a registered donor, yes or no? Do you commit to having a conversation with your loved ones? And there's just a few other ones. But again, it's all confidential, but we roll this data up to share with other people and also to get some grants to share the program to you all. Okay, next. It's pretty amazing. A deceased donor can actually impact 8 lives, because we have 2 kidneys and 2 lungs. And with all the tissues, one person can actually enhance someone else's lives, 75 lives. And last year there were 40,000 corneal transplants done that restored the sight for individuals. And I'm a brand new grandma, 6 weeks old, I just saw her today, and I can't imagine if I couldn't see. But if I got the gift of sight because somebody was generous to be a donor, I restored my eyesight and I could see my beautiful granddaughter Rosie. And sadly, if people don't register to be a donor, then 0 people's lives are saved, 0 people's lives are enhanced. Okay, next. It's in your program on the PowerPoint. These are all the different ways, and it's not limited to this. Of all the ways it's tied to the curriculum. As I said, for Winsville, it was their health and PE. Sometimes it's even in a psychology class. Sometimes in English, they'll debate how do you feel about it, how do you feel about it, and have an open conversation about it. So there's many ways it can tie to the curriculum. We know your time is critical and you're trying to squeeze every important information you can to the students. We also feel this is important information to share with your students as well. Next. How about thank you? Is that over 30 minutes? I know I went pretty fast, but at any time, you know, when you all get back together, I have an envelope. If you would just vote on it sometime in the near future, have a discussion. What is right for your students, your family, your community? And if you want an in-person one, I'd be happy to come out and talk with your students. Or if you here in the audience, you have some questions, I would be glad to answer them now. Or as you're driving home, you got another question, you can just email me. Because it's a hard topic, I understand it. I'm passionate because my uncle got a heart transplant and lived 8.5 years. He got to see my cousin get married, hold his first grandchild, loved roller coasters, went back to riding Coney Island, and just, you would feel the same way. One more minute, one more memory, one more hug of your loved ones. And we were able to experience that because what was one family's worst day of their life became a very grateful day for those donor family recipients. So anybody have any questions? Yes.
So, if the Wright City School District were to adopt this, is it an all or nothing? Or are parents allowed to opt in or opt out?
That is a great question. Yes, definitely parents can opt their kids out. There's a form. We never want to be uncomfortable for religious reasons, social emotional reasons. There are legitimate reasons why somebody may not want to participate, and we respect all feelings on that. That's a wonderful question.
Generally, it's the high school level.
It is, but we are open. If you feel like a middle school audience would be comfortable with it, we have done some middle schools. We also presented Driver Ed's program. We can do it in person, Zoom, or like our online program.
Okay. Well, thank you.
All right, thank you.
So, if you want to just give that envelope to Dr. Berger.
Sure, and it also has a list of commonly asked questions. So you may not have thought of it now, but you may. That's a good question. I should have asked that.
So, do you have that electronically?
It is on your, is it on your?
Is it?
Yep, it's
Okay.
in your
So what we'll do is, it'll go on the agenda for May or June,
Okay,
and
sure.
then we'll vote on it.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to hand you some brochures also. So thank you very much, everyone.
Okay, at this moment, we need to accept the certified election results.
So moved.
There's a motion and second to accept the certified election results. Any more discussion? All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? 7-0. Next, I need a motion to adjourn the old Board of Education.
So moved.
I'll second that.
There's a motion and second. Any more discussion? All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? You can ask for your raise now. You're in charge.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Want to sign it and then we'll swear you in?
Good day, sign that. Oh, you're not secretary yet. You're technically not secretary
It'll
yet.
be neat, Ted. Wait until. All right, you want to hold it so you can read it with me?
I will.
All right, if you'll please stand. Raise your right hand.
Standing right.
Ready? I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Missouri,
and the Constitution of the State of Missouri,
and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties
and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties
of school director in and for the Wright City R2 School District,
of school director in and for the Wright City R2 School District,
County of Warren, State of Missouri, to the best of my ability according to law.
County of Warrenton, State of Missouri, to the best of my ability, according to law.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
All right, the next thing on our agenda is to elect the board president. I'll frame this real quickly. I'll ask for nominations for the board president. You'll be considered as long as you don't reject the nomination. All nominations are received and noted. Nominations do not need a second. And I'll call for a voice vote on the nominees in the order they were nominated. So with that, I'll take nominations for board president.
Nominate Austin Jones.
Austin Jones has been nominated. Are there other nominations for board president? And if there are none, I would ask for a motion for nominations to cease.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Okay, Michael Bates on the motion, Heidi on the second. And with that, excuse me, I need a call on that, don't I?
Yes.
This isn't what I do.
It's hard.
I'll ask for a vote on Austin Jones for president. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it, and I think you always say, I heard 7 ayes, or six ayes.
I need a first and a second.
That makes, we had, I thought we had
Then they,
Michael Bates.
that was their cease to accept nomination. Now
Oh,
we need
but
a
it's
vote.
by acclamation.
Okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
by acclamation. So no vote because we only have the single nomination. Congratulations, Mr. President. Very anxious to turn it back over to you, obviously.
Thank you for the vote. Thank you. I'm humbled and for the vote of confidence. I appreciate it. I need a motion for vice president.
I'll nominate Alice Jensen.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
You accept?
Yes.
Are there any other nominations? I need a motion to cease nominations and accept Alice Jensen by acclamation.
So moved. Second.
There's a motion and second. Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I heard 7-0. Dave, secretary? Are you wanting that again?
Sure.
I-
I'm testing here.
We don't want to change any signature cards.
Yeah, we don't want to change signature cards.
I'll
Mary?
nominate David Micas as secretary.
I'll second that.
Okay, any other nominations for secretary? I need a motion to cease nominations and accept David Micas by acclamation.
So moved.
Second.
Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 7-0. Treasurer, Mary was our treasurer last year.
I nominate Mary Draper.
I'll second that.
Any more nominations for treasurer? I need a motion to cease nominations and accept Mary by acclamation.
So moved.
Second.
Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 7-0. The next item is MSBA delegate and alternate. I personally would like to be the delegate again. I like that job. So unless anybody else wants to do it.
I'll nominate Austin as delegate.
And who was the alternate last year?
Mary.
You want to be alternate again? And I'll nominate Mary as alternate. Second on those?
Second.
Like all on this today.
Right.
Okay, any more discussion on the delegate? Any more nominations for the delegate and alternate? I need a motion to cease those nominations and accept myself as the delegate and Mary as the alternate.
So moved.
Second.
Is there any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I heard 7-0. Chris and I had a conversation about the waiver committee. And basically, you know, it's a very narrow reason why we would use it. Last year, we had 3 members on it. I believe it was Heidi, Mary, and who was it?
Michael.
Michael.
I've been on it every year.
Do you still want to do it? Or
I'm
no?
happy to do that.
Yes.
I know you all didn't meet last year. So,
It's an easy gig.
Yeah.
so I need a motion to nominate Mary, Heidi, and Michael to the waiver committee.
So moved.
Second.
Any more motions or
Nomination.
nominations? So just for everybody's edification, the waiver committee, if there's a student, and it's a very narrow reason, if there's a student that wants to come to our district, but they're legally, they're not, they don't live here, then the waiver committee would hear that, appeal, and then they would decide whether or not that kid could attend our schools or not. That's what the waiver committee does. Okay. I need a motion to cease nominations and accept Mary, Heidi, and Michael. Did I have that already? Okay.
So moved. Second.
Yeah. Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 7-0. We have, because we are a member of the Greater Warren County Economic Development Committee, we typically have a district representative. Last year, I believe that was Mary. Are you wanting to do that again? Okay. Does anybody else want to be the representative? I think Heidi, you were the alternate.
I was the alternate, and I would like to continue to be the alternate, yes.
Okay, I need a motion to accept Mary as the representative and Heidi as the alternate.
So moved.
Second.
Any more nominations? I need a motion to cease nominations and accept Mary as the Greater Warren County Economic Development Committee representative and Heidi as alternate, and by acclamation.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 7-0. Policy Committee, I would be willing to give up my seat on the Policy Committee if someone else wants to do it. Otherwise, I would be happy to do it again. I know I've done it for 2 years, so if the alternate wants to do it this year, I think it's only fair.
I'll do it.
Okay,
If
who's,
Michael doesn't want to.
Erin said she wanted
I'll
to
do it
stay
again.
on
okay,
and
and then who else?
Heidi.
Heidi?
Yep.
All right, and then who wants to be the alternate?
I'll continue to be alternate.
You continue to be alternate? Okay. So I need a motion to nominate Heidi and Aaron to the Policy Committee and Michael as the alternate.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any more nominations? I need a motion to cease nominations and accept Heidi and Aaron as members of the Policy Committee and Michael as the alternate.
So moved. Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 7-0. Thank you. So the next item on our agenda is public comments. There's 2 individuals that have signed up. Ms. Tubner has requested to talk about restorative practices, which is in our consent agenda. So Ms. Tubner, please. Before you speak, let me, something I want to read here. So only items posted on the agenda may be discussed. Persons wishing to speak during public comments will sign up before the meeting. Public comments will be allowed 15 minutes. The 15 minutes will be divided amongst the number of people desiring to speak on an agenda, not to exceed 3 minutes. If you have any written information, please submit that beforehand to the superintendent. No individual will be permitted to speak more than once during this period. Person addressing the board are advised that they should not expect a response from the board at the time of the presentation. Comments concerning individual students or staff members should be submitted to the board in writing. Because the board is bound by numerous state and federal confidentiality laws, the board will only respond to issues involving individual students or staff members in closed session. To be placed on the district's agenda, a written request should be submitted to the superintendent or the board secretary 5 days prior to the next meeting. And all speakers are reminded they are liable for any defamatory comments made during public comments portion of the meeting. Comments will be kept courteous, respectful, and appropriate so the board may use the information to make quality, informed decisions that are in the best interest of the district. So,
Bear with me, I'm gonna sit, I just had mouth surgery today.
I'm sorry.
So we're all aware of the past incident with the no contact contract. No consequences were ever moved forward on that. Fast forward, my son was attacked again by a different student, and he defended himself this time. Kudos to him, I'm so proud. 5-day suspension. 5-day suspension. So a kid can attack my kid and a no contact contract be in place because of prior issues, yet it's not upheld. And then we can turn around and my kid defends himself and is 5 days out of school. I mean, his first issue this year. There's gotta be a line. So in this new policy that you guys are trying to move forward with, even though I'm 100% against it, there has to be a line. Across the board, everyone treated equally, because this is, I mean, it's ridiculous. Absolutely. I mean, he enjoyed his 5-day vacation, so, but that's not okay. It's not okay for him to defend himself and get kicked out for 5 days. 5 of them. And then just for, prior, he's had issues with this other student hundreds of times to the point that no contract was put in place, stating that if there were any incidents, it's a 10-day out of school suspension, no ands, ifs, or buts about it. That was not upheld. I'm trying to figure out why. Like why is my son being held to higher standards than other people? That's not, I thought we treated our kids equally. I thought we was all in this together, and I'm seeing another side.
Okay, so we are getting into closed session material, so obviously we're not going to respond to.
Well, I didn't say anyone's names.
Yeah, but you said your son's name, which is a personally identifiable piece of information.
Did I?
Well, you said your son, so.
Oh, yeah, just my son. I have more than one son. You have no idea which one.
But still,
I
that
kept it open.
we're getting to the family situation.
Okay, well, I'm done with it.
So
It's
just,
out there now.
I mean, what I suggest is work with the building principal.
Been trying.
Have you contacted Dr. Bird?
Absolutely.
Then your next course of action would be to get in a closed session and then submit the agenda.
So I need to email you.
Email Dr. Berger or Amy to get on a closed session, yes.
Okay.
Okay, next item would be Mr. Zykan, and I know we just went through the election certification, but he would like to speak about the election, so Mr. Zykan.
This may be the briefest you ever hear me speak. So I'm going to start out by just addressing 2 members of the board, Austin and Mary. Thank you guys very much. Congratulations on your win. You've done some outstanding things for the school. You've done some outstanding things in the community, and we all appreciate it. So again, congratulations on the win. We have spoken a little bit with them. Obviously, we got to sit with them at some of the polling locations and whatnot as well. But to the rest of you that we've not really sat down and spoken with, all of the stuff that we talked about this year and it came up, it wasn't something that I heard on the radio or saw on TV or invented because I felt a certain way in the morning. These were all issues, every single one of them, that was brought to us by concerned parents. Parents with issues, parents that just don't feel, in some cases, heard or understood. Sometimes they feel blown off. Sometimes they feel the lack of discussion amongst the board when they're discussing certain issues. It just sets them aback a little bit. So I hope as we move forward, maybe some of this will cause some positive changes in the right direction. I'm trying to do what I can still do outside of the board. Video camera is one of those things. We had several people ask us why all the other districts were doing video and we weren't doing video. I know you guys weren't capable of it, so I'm going to volunteer to do that here on my own. But with that said, again, congratulations, and I look forward to another productive year, and in your case, another productive term, and then good luck with the Missouri School Board Association in your endeavors there as well. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Okay, next item on the agenda is the naming rights. So in the public content section, you'll see the naming rights for the various things that were sold at the Blue and Gold auction. I see Mrs. name's on here for $26,500.
Almost.
I'm kidding. It's Heath Sullivan, 27. It says it in here. So anyway, but Ms. is on the hook for some of this stuff. So anyway, in all seriousness, I want to personally thank all the people that bid on these various naming rights. Blue and Gold will benefit greatly from the scholarship money. So thank you very much from the bottom of our hearts. We appreciate that from the Blue and Gold Scholarship Committee. So we basically just need a motion to approve these, unless anybody has any questions.
I can make a motion to approve the naming rights that were won at Blue and Gold as presented.
Second.
There's a motion and second. Any more discussion? All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? I heard 7-0.
Can I just want to echo thank you for everyone who participated in this and brought the scholarships for our kids. I know that committee's meeting tomorrow night to look at those applications. And are the seniors this year, then they'll have at a later time the continuing scholarships. So this has been such a wonderful thing for our kids. And thank you to everyone who participated, who worked there, or who purchased things. And thank you. And thank you to Ms. for the Kiwanis. He put the money in, but he always highlights a nonprofit, and this year it's a sports cause. So.
Do we know what the final number was?
I did not hear.
We have a hand grenade number.
I believe it was about 107,000 net.
That's fantastic.
Oh, net, okay. Yeah, the number I heard was bigger, but yeah.
Yeah, net, yeah.
That's wonderful.
Okay, next time on the agenda is an informational item, our CSIP. In all seriousness, there's a public comment thing behind you.
Oh,
You
I
wanna
have
bring
the
that up here?
paperwork. I have the Hey, good to see you.
Maureen, get everything we can out of you this morning.
Soon to come, right?
Coordinate. Now, student groups, I think it's student groups. Yeah, so we'll field any questions the board might have on those.
So do we have to do a new comprehensive school improvement program for them?
We are. MSIP 6 requires a new, it's pretty much, 85–90% of it looks like the old strategic plan, but there will be a new committee assembled. MSIP 6 technically is not even approved by the Board of Education yet, but it's, they're in a comment period, and that's slated for this spring. I'm not sure exactly the month, but then it'll all go live. There was an informational meeting today, and there's another one in about 30 days. And so the details are starting to kind of come out more and more, but there is a new CSIP. I think it's for the most part the same format, some different required information.
So, and then I guess we'll get a committee together.
We will.
With parents.
And that's like, they're touting that as a new requirement that has to have public input. The CSIP has always had public input. Every district that I know aware of in the state have always had, different segments of population represented.
Anything else on the CSIPs?
Attendance? I know, that's like the worst.
I know,
question
and we're
ever.
gonna be more attentive to attendance next year when we kind of flip the switch in terms of normalcy. A lot of the attendance things that are related to funding have been relieved of us. In fact, we're gonna let's go to pre-COVID year to capture ADA for moving into next year, which with our growth, it perhaps might be less important for our district because we can use next year's ADA for the formula, which right now is in play. We might do that for those districts that weren't growing, and then they took that steep decline with all the COVID-related issues. It's really rough on them because in the simplest form, it's ADA, which is a nose, and simplified times the state adequacy target, so call it $6,000. So if your ADA goes down, you have less noses. It's really been pretty rough on school districts, but that among other things, the state has kind of relieved some of that. But kind of next year is a new year, and we're hoping certainly much closer to normal, where we'll start putting all the accountability and informational measures that we do for students to try to get our attendance back to meet the 90 for 90 standard.
I think it's important for people to know that the CSIP reports show growth over time. It's not meant to be sort of an end of the semester test showing everything that students have learned. It's really used for understanding where we need to focus on a certain issue, a certain concept with students, and key in there.
And certainly a big part of the assessment plan that Mr. Smith pulled together. That's only its real first year of implementation. We're looking, the evidence-based study group's been great about really focusing on this too, is Our internal assessments need to be good predictors of what the map's going to play out as. So we're chomping at the bit to get to spring testing. We're looking forward to it this spring and continue our good work. But the job won't be done no matter where they fall.
Right.
But we'll continue on. Internal assessments, though, and those are on display here every month for the CSIP reports, are a big part of what we're doing.
Any other questions on the CSIP? Next item on the agenda is certified teacher evaluation. Who's responsible for this?
Inspired Amendment Team. So Dr. Wade, we have some guests. Let's go. Yeah.
Sarah, Angie, and Brian, and they're going to take over from here.
Yeah, so as Dr. Berger alluded to, we are sitting on the Aspiring Admin team. And each year, the Aspiring Admin are tasked with completing a project. The previous 2 years, we all completed individual projects, and going into this year, Dr. Wade and Mr. Smith wanted us to work together on something that was more cohesive and something that would impact teachers and administration across the district. So we took a look at the teacher evaluation plan as it is currently being used in the district, and we're going to share with you some of our findings and suggestions.
So the current evaluation system that we're using right now and the growth guides that teachers are looking at were created in 2013 and is based on the state of Missouri model. We reached out as Aspiring Admin to our respective buildings and talked to our building leaders and the teachers within and asked them what are some challenges they faced or what are some complications when using those growth guides or getting observed by an admin, what are some problems that come up. Right now we have 3 indicator rubrics. One is chosen at the district level, one is chosen at each building level, and then the third one is the teacher choice. Each one are graded per se on a 7-point scale. So scores that occur in the same box are unclear. So within that scale, there are 4 different categories. There's emerging, developing, proficient, and distinguished. In emerging, there's a 0 to 2 rating. For developing, it's 3 or 4, and then proficient is 5 or 6, and then distinguished is a 7. So there were some inclarities about how to get from a 1 to 2 per se, or a 3 to 4, the differences between those numbers that are in the same box. So teachers felt that reaching the distinguished box, even though it had a number by itself, but it was almost impossible to get at times, because the verbiage right now currently says that they must present. So as we all know, presenting time is very valuable in our district, and even though we have those professional development times on Wednesdays, it was not always accessible for teachers to have that opportunity to present at those times, so that was a struggle. We create growth plans every year, and the beginning of September is when they're due right now, and we really don't revisit them until our summative evaluation with our administrators. So our growth plan includes action steps and ways that we're going to prove our growth within the year for all 3 indicators currently. So on our district indicator, on the building indicator, and our personal indicator.
So you're telling me when you do you create your growth plan in September.
Yes.
And then when do you do your evaluation with the teacher?
Depending if you're tenured or non-tenured. Non-tenures are usually in March, and then, end of February or March.
So there's no feedback between September and March?
She's talking about summatives.
Right.
At summatives, you'll revisit all that at the end. But as you receive a formal observation, you will have that coaching opportunity with your building administrator.
Okay.
And you will revisit those.
Okay, so
indicators
you
as
are.
well.
Yes, we're getting coached on the observations themselves, but the actual growth plan indicators, the steps that we take, aren't necessarily discussed until that summative evaluation at the end.
If they're not being observed. At times, we'll talk about that more in the second slide as well, if that indicator that you specifically chose as a teacher choice is not being observed at that time. That's something that we really felt passionate about. In the next slide we'll talk about. But those district indicators and that building indicator, every time that administrator is circling in, whether it's formal or informal, they're always looking for opportunities to assess and evaluate a teacher on those indicators.
Well, the reason I asked is because like in my job, I have my growth plan, and I have to meet quarterly with my boss. So I'm meeting with him 4 times a year, and then we basically go through that stuff. Mm-hmm. And then in January he does his final summative for me, and then I get my raise in March based upon that.
Correct.
But 4 times a year, my boss is, okay, here's your growth plan and stuff like that. So.
And I think each building had its own discrepancies within how they're using the growth plan as well.
Okay.
Which leads us to our next slide. So while it looks very similar to our old teacher growth guide, this one we really felt passionate about. Number one, eliminating that 7-point scale. What we found is that teachers were really getting hung up on those numbers as where they were. So we really wanted them to hone in on what does it look like to be an emerging teacher, developing, proficient, and distinguished. So we really focused in on the verbiage and using that to really drive our teachers and trying to reframe that mindset. They were really hung up on the numbers. The first thing that we changed was in this emerging category, the number used to say a 0 to 1 or a 0 to 2. And that was really hard for a teacher to wrap their head around. Giving the time and energy they put in the classroom, how could I be at a 0 but I was teaching? So we really worked on putting a column in here that was called unobservable. And what that meant was if the administrator walked in the classroom at the time and didn't see one of those indicators present that they were looking for, they could place you in the unobservable box right there, which would say that component that I was looking for wasn't there at the time. So when you sit down to have that coaching opportunity, you have that conversation. So why was it unobservable? Well, I didn't see standard 3.3 taking place in there. Talk to me about that next time I come in. So it's not to be demeaning, it's just meant to say, oh, maybe they were doing a math assessment, or maybe they were doing a read aloud at the time when she happened to pop in. It's not that you weren't teaching, you were just unobservable for what I was looking for until we have that coaching conversation. And the last thing I felt very passionate about was the distinguished column as well. Our teachers found it very hard to move and progress to become a distinguished teacher because in that category you had to present your professional development, present to other colleagues. That's hard for us to do and to get out of the classroom. So we really try to reframe that verbiage and lend that nicely to where it benefit the teachers by giving them, we have wonderful teachers here in Wright City, and we do so many things in the classroom. We mentor other teachers. We lead out data team meetings. We lead out behavior response teams. So our teachers are innate natural leaders. So we were trying to give them a column right there to highlight their natural abilities instead of just standing in front of the entire school doing some professional development. We don't always get that time or opportunity. We all lead in our own ways within our buildings that we can. So we really allowed for teachers to become a distinguished teacher by giving them opportunities to lead naturally and lend themselves naturally within the building. So those are two things that we're really excited about to move forward with, is moving on with that unobservable column and then the distinguished, giving teachers more opportunities to lead that they already do.
And then lastly, we had discussions with a couple of the administrators and amongst our team on what adjustments in practice could take place. So the rubrics adjustment, we talked about the goals for teachers and admin to look at a status within a rubric column rather than a rating. And the 4-point scale, we had to stick with a number of some sort because Dr. Way reports to the state every year and rates teachers at the state level. So we wanted to be consistent with that, and so that now at least it makes sense as to why there's a rating there, and it's not just some arbitrary 0 to 7 scale. And then with the growth plans that we talked about earlier, we wanted to make those more meaningful. Not that principals didn't provide feedback and didn't have those coaching conversations. We talked about that. That is very present. But what would often happen is you would spend time writing these growth plans, but then teachers or then principals would then pull out the rubrics and have discussions with teachers around the rubrics, but not the actual growth plan that was written. So what we are proposing and what principals are going to wrestle with at admin retreat coming up in the fall is, perhaps we have teachers write a growth plan around their chosen specific indicator that's a little more narrowly focused and unique to that person as a teacher, and then still use the rubrics for the district and the building indicators because we want to be normed in those district-wide, and we want the principals to be normed in what they're looking for, but having something specific to that teacher to really help them grow and make the growth plan more part of the regular conversation was something we were proposing. So definitely have some paper things to change, but also some adjustments in practice.
Any questions?
What's your next step?
Well, next step was we adjusted all of the state rubrics to the 4-point scale. And Dr. Way has those to take that to admin team for review and discussion and implementation next fall. And then he and Mr. Smith will lead the charge in adjusting practice moving forward.
So if something's unobservable, would you just try to go back and observe again, or what would be
So that's the idea behind that, is if the teacher was unobservable at the time, what made them unobservable? What was going on that they couldn't, get an observation in at the time? And definitely there's that coaching conversation that's taking place to clarify anything that was going on. Are there times that teachers are unobservable across the board? And if so, that's a different conversation that we have to be having as well. And we know that that does also need to be considered, which is why we left that in there as well.
Any other questions? So, a question and a comment.
Sure.
The question is, so we got MSIP 6 coming up.
Yep.
So I know a lot of this stuff plays into that. So with what you're proposing, how well aligned is this with the MSIP 6?
That's a good question.
Well, I mean, we're still using the state evaluation model and the state evaluation model rubrics that came from the state of Missouri. All we've done is to better clarify those rankings by making it a 1, 2, 3, or 4. People understand instead of a 0 to 2, 3 to 4, 5 to 6, which then tended to become often the conversation when a principal and a teacher are discussing, why am I a 5? What do I need to do to get a 6? Instead of, you're still a proficient teacher. And we wanted to highlight that idea. So our growth guides that you saw up there, all we did was take and add a unobservable category that might pop up. I might go in as a principal would go in and was looking for 3 things typically in each teacher evaluation. We have 3 of these, one that the district picks, one the building picks, and one the teacher picks. And so I might go into a classroom and observe a teacher and see 2 of them. And one of them may not be present as part of that evaluation that day. Previously, without that unobservable category, that became more of a punitive negative on the teacher and on their score, rather than something that could be discussed. And so that's why we wanted to move that away from the actual score part to an observable part. So to speak to MSIP 6, this is the state of Missouri model. The thing that we did on that right-hand column, instead of presenting to colleagues, is lead colleagues. And other than that, our verbiage is essentially exactly what the state of Missouri put out. What we did, we added an unobservable column, or what the admin did, aspiring admin did, took along the bottom all the different variances and made a 4-point scale instead of a 7, and changed like present to colleagues to lead colleagues, and essentially it's the same system that we've had prior.
Okay, and then my comment is, and that's all good, and I appreciate that. So we're basically we're MSIP 6 forward looking. That was the answer there. So the other thing is like what we do with him on his evaluation is there's superintendent standards too, much like you saw for the teachers. So what the board does with him is the board sits down with him in closed session and we say, okay, Chris, the board thinks you need to work on this. So the board talks with him and says, okay, here's one of the things you're going to work on. Then he tells us, well, I think I need to work on this. And then we discuss that some more, and then that becomes his. And then that's the second item. And then collectively, we choose a 3rd standard that we think that together. So my question would be to you as aspiring admins, what I heard is you just pick one for you. But let's say your principal, so how do you get input from your principal that says you need to work on this?
It's a collaborative discussion. So almost always new teachers will sit down with the principals at the very beginning of the year, and principals have high leverage indicators that they guide teachers towards. Obviously teachers have some flexibility in what they choose. A lot of times first year teachers will be encouraged to pick classroom management, just things that you're learning in your craft. But as you grow as a veteran teacher, you sit down and have that collaborative discussion, both at the end of the school year and then at the beginning of the next. So at the end of the school year, as part of your summative evaluation, here are some things I as a principal saw you grow in. Here are some things that I felt like I grew in as a teacher. Here are some things I would like to pursue in my career. And then together you can kind of steer that path toward the individual indicator. It's more of having an opportunity for the evaluation to be unique to you as a teacher than it is me just picking one so that I have one that's different.
But I will also say to piggyback off that as well, being a teacher in the district for several years, you know, one year, say I kept the same one, data collection to drive my instruction. Maybe one year I received a score of a 3. Personally, I would keep that the next year and to see what is the next point for me to move from a 3 to a 5. Did I get all these pieces in place, but now I really got to firm up my data collection. And so now when I have that conversation with my administrator, I can bring that data with me because now I've laid the foundation the first year. So now the second year, I'm ready to add on that second piece. These standards are very, very in-depth. If we spend a lot of time unraveling them, grappling with them, like, what on earth does this even mean? And how am I supposed to give you that and that? And now there's 7 and there's 9 and there's all these. So just really dissecting those and looking at that verbiage, there's a lot of components that teachers have to have in order to be distinguished. And what we have found is after you've been in the district for so long, you can't be an emerging teacher or proficient. You need to be distinguished, or we're in a different conversation. So we really looked at that, making that impactful to teachers and getting teachers to that distinguished level. So we are encouraged, if we are not quite where we want to be, that is a true growth mindset. Hey, Sarah, we got here this year, but next year we got to get here. And how are we going to get you here together? That's continuing that goal, just like our CSIP goals. Those are 2 and 3 years long sometimes. The same can be true for a teacher on this evaluation system.
Okay, my last question, and I'll be quiet. So what I didn't hear in your presentation is professional development. So how does that all tie into what you just talked about there?
So a lot of our PD time, since we've gone to the impact teams and the data team model, a lot of our PD time is eaten up with that. And so what we now experience is that our teachers and AG can speak to this and Sarah can speak to this more in the classroom experience, but the opportunities to mentor other teachers in the building is more impactful than just leading out a professional development session on something that I do well. And so you know, there's just been more opportunities for different kinds of leadership in the building than there has to provide professional development. And hopefully, you know, we get back to having some opportunities for people to present in the future. But it's just been a changing nature of where we are right now.
But I guess the PD money is still in the classroom, helping those teachers go from emerging to distinguished.
So it's definitely intentional. I will say that we have different groups of teachers that are receiving different professional development based upon the intentional needs of them. All of our new teachers right now are receiving intentional professional development around letters training. That is a core foundation that we said they need to have at the elementary level in order to produce good readers and to build that reading fluency for students. So we intentionally put them in there. We also have other teachers who are doing, you know, the RTI, response to interventions, and they're seeking professional development through the help of their building leaders or other teachers that lead that else. I myself am on the social emotional ruler leader as well, along with our counselor in our building. I just received some professional development through ruler as well. So we are in charge of seeking our own, through the help and guidance, professional development. It is there, it's very intentional to your need though. It's not just everyone's being trained on this and how am I going to use this? So very intentional.
I appreciate that answer. It's intentional.
It is.
As far as impact teams go, a lot of our impact teams are objectives related and those directly correlate to our district and building goals as well. So a lot of our professional development times in those impact meetings are bringing in those resources that our teams need at the moment that match those goals.
One of the things that we've been a lot more intentional about that they've said is to bring professional development to our teachers rather than send us out a lot. I mean, we've brought groups in the last couple of years to do big training on impact teams and then on quality teaming, looking at data. We've trained leaders and we've trained the entire staff on that. And then those have become our particular indicators that our district and buildings use, that are focused on those things that we're bringing people in to train our people on.
Got some good things going.
Yeah, that's great.
Mr. President, two quick comments. RTI letters, and so that should sound familiar because that's in our CSIP, right? So right from the top, not getting unfocused, and right down to the classroom. The second thing I want to mention, if I can remember it, is impact. Every time we say impact teams, we should think collective teacher efficacy. That is the #1 impactful thing that we can do to increase our student achievement. #1. And so every time they say this, you know, I wonder if that gets a little bit gray for our board or but think collective teacher efficacy, which means we're making ourselves better. You heard some of that
Absolutely.
through PD. So thank you for letting me plug that real quick. But that's a central focus to what we're doing, and it's making a difference.
I'm done.
I'm done too. Thank you for letting me sneak in.
Anybody else have anything?
You guys did a great job.
Just great job. Yeah, great job for that.
Okay, facility support and instructional resources, item A, high school planning update. Dr. Berger?
Yep, thank you. And Mr. Vaughn's got some great information for us this month, and maybe a couple of things that will be new. There's some new information. I got Art spun up last Wednesday on taking two walks down the trail, so we'll see how that morphs tonight and see if the board's receptive to it.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Berger. Wanted to kind of give you a snapshot of where we are in the process, and we're really hitting the ground running now. We're glad to see the bond issues move forward with the success that you all had. That was pretty astounding, so congratulations. Very exciting. One of the things that we're working on right now is annexation of the high school property, which you see here in red, and the black outline is Wright City proper. And we're doing this for a couple of reasons. One, this will allow the high school property to take advantage of the city utilities. Water and sewer primarily, but also there will be advantages for electrical and basically all utilities, stormwater detention as well. It also is going to enable the conversation to go further with the city about the roadway discussion going east-west on the north edge of the high school property. It becomes more contentious when you're a resident and you're in a subdivision and it's being annexed, because then you have the conversation about taxes and implications and so forth. But in a school district, that's not on the table. So it is distinctly to our advantage to be incorporated into the city. And that process is underway, and I believe we'll have a P&Z meeting early next week. And a couple of the readings have gone through, and this is proceeding pretty well. So I did want to entertain any questions about that if you guys had any.
That item is in consent agenda. Certainly we can ask questions now, and if somebody felt so compelled, they can pull it from consent, and we can pull that out. But best to ask the question now while Art's here to get the accurate answer.
Sure. Okay. Next slide. This is a list of the alternates that we have discussed a couple of times through. And what we had talked about is essentially we have 7 alternates. And when we talk about an alternate, we're talking about pieces of the bid package that will be priced out separately that could be accepted or put by the wayside, depending on how they come in during the bidding process. What's interesting to note is that with the success of your bond issue, both bond issues, you have the ability to absorb essentially 6 of the 7. And in the conversations that we've had just last week with Dr. Way and Dr. Berger, we were pointing to the fact that probably everything with the exception of alternate number 4, which is the Performing Arts Auditorium, we think that it makes sense to roll the other 6 alternates into the baseline of the project. Because what that'll give you is a more substantial view of the athletics. It'll dial in potentially the performance gymnasium, additional locker rooms, and a lot of the field amenities that we've discussed, which we had sidelined, not knowing kind of how things were going to go in first the election and then further in the pricing as we go. If we flip to the next slide, you can see this is an overall of the floor plan. And what it does is it highlights, and if we can flip to the next slide, sorry, there we go. You can see the practice gymnasium limits are over here. And this in red is the performance gymnasium. We have the performance auditorium down here. And then the cafeteria on the end was part of the original package. But what we're saying is that everything in red would be accepted and rolled into the baseline project. And then in green, we would revisit that, and whether or not that's an alternate is something that we need to discuss. But we're thinking that it makes sense to go ahead and roll the performance gymnasium into the primary package.
So what are the, I mean, in my mind, we're sending, this could be completely wrong, we're sending out bids for all of this stuff, and then here's other things we want bidded on. So what's the advantage of rolling it all together versus saying, here's the high school and here's this for
Keeping all the alternates
separate? Yeah.
It will give us the ability to actually see some savings potentially too. And your question's a great one. I should have hit this earlier. If we were to do the stadium as one package, and we had it broken out into 2 or 3 actually as alternates, you would see a savings of $200,000 in doing that package itself as one total package. We think there are additional savings by rolling in the other pieces too. We don't know at this point the extent of that, but it'll give us a more holistic view going in. We'll be doing more utility runs out to the fields. We'll be tying in a lot of the trades. Will be on in the right sequence, if you will, as opposed to bringing them back after the primary project is completed. It's not to say that you couldn't roll those in at the time that you start construction, but it's enabling us to get a more holistic view.
So if we were to send out the bid, including everything in red, and it came back overpriced, is there additional fees to saying like, we're gonna need you to do this again without those things to keep our, make sure that we're
No,
staying in
it's gonna be on us to make sure that we dial it into budget.
Mm-hmm.
But what I would say is that the alternate of the auditorium is substantial. And sometimes when you get a lot of alternates layered in, the bid climate gets a little bit confusing. And if we can come with one large alternate, like the auditorium, which is a fairly complex piece of the equation, it can, I think, clarify things better, and we'll have a better idea when bids are delivered. We can really nail it down.
Thank you.
And Art, I'll clarify one other thing, Williams, that I know you've got, but if it's absolutely on us, our cost estimates have to be good, but the board always can throw it out. So if for some reason things got away from us, you're not obligated to accept. I mean, we may have to go back to the drawing board at that point. And of course, the negative to that is delay, right? But I don't want you to think, if we go, this route, that we're committed to it, the board's going to have to hold their nose and take it. Absolutely not. We'll be informing you, and we'll be honest. We were off, or we were spot on. The other thing that I want to bring up is, this is kind of to take your temperature tonight on this. This is not there's no motion tonight. This, as we typically, we know what the board's going to see 2 or 3 weeks prior to that. Art and Brian are working on it. This I threw on Wednesday, and so I said, hey, I don't mind. Let's get to the board and take their temperature on it, and we'll get some feedback from you to see if we need to develop this type of plan. But the cost savings, obviously, we're motivated by. And the very good example, and it makes even really intuitive sense if you were to go back to that slide field turf, field lights at the new high school, completed football stadium at the new high school. Art, you check me on this, if we package those together, even outside of these other things that Art's wanted to do, one of his first suggestion was package those together, we get a $200,000 savings in that.
And that was just from the trades that are handling the turf and the urethane track. We think there's additional savings to be had by the lighting contractors, utilities, excavation, and actually beyond. But I do also want to say, folks, that we're not throwing caution to the wind. We are still very carefully looking at the costs going forward. And everything that we've said before holds true. And we're still going to be looking at everything with a microscope. We have not had the chance to really dig down into these alternates and square up those numbers as well. So while there's additional savings, I also want to be cautious about how we approach it too, because we may say, oh boy, there are a couple of things, unknowns here that we didn't really foresee. And I want to be prepared to let you all know and kind of back away if we think it's getting too close to the final cost.
What's your crystal ball saying on how the prices are coming in? Is this summer, is things going to start leveling back off, or
well,
do you have that?
That's a good question. My crystal ball is a little fuzzy, so I don't always trust it. But we have had, probably 4 or 5 projects bid in since we last met. Everyone has come in at or under budget. It's not to say that everything's turning around, but we are starting to see availability of materials is getting faster. We're still cautious. We're still going to specify everything be local and U.S. products, but we think it's getting better.
Now, those bids you had that say came in at, were they rural or urban?
They were both.
Okay. Because obviously, we're more toward the urban side of it, and with more competition for labor and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, you're definitely drawing out of the more urban pool. But we had projects mid-state and right in town too that were all coming in. They were generally smaller projects than what you have here, but it's all been coming to the good.
With 6 of the 7 alternates being included in the price, what's your roundabout estimate of what the projected money?
Well, as we roll these in, and we're adjusting some of the numbers on a couple of the non-high school related projects, like we're looking at conversion of this building. We would like to put more money into the conversion because we think it was pretty tight. And so we'd like to we had $350,000 in for this conversion of this building. I think we're better off pushing closer to $1 million. Because I think and I think we've got the dollars to do it.
That's a big conversion.
Well, and we'll go through every detail, but we were thinking that we might not have enough money to do Jack and Jill restrooms all the way through, and that we might have to make this a slightly older early childhood center, so that we could use what we have here. Now, going forward, I think, as we adjust things, you may be able to have the flexibility to do this building for all ages. So those are a number of conversations that we're going to come back to you with. But with those adjustments and then rolling in these 6 alternates, we're around 53 million or so.
This proposal clearly chooses sports over performing arts. As a performing arts person myself, how is our old high school in terms of having a decent auditorium? I mean, can it still function well?
It can, and your question points another miss that I had tonight. What we talked about doing was making the new cafeteria more acoustically sound so that we could do it more as a performing arts venue with much greater development of the acoustic treatment in that space and possibly doing either a portable stage or building some sort of a stage onto the cafeteria itself and restructuring that to buy time. Really, it's not to say that we're not going to have the performing arts, because ultimately I think you guys will. But it's to kind of set it up and say, okay, let's buy a little time. The existing high school gymnasium can be tweaked, and we can look at that too. It currently has pretty good acoustics, and we had always thought that it would be used for performances. But we can do it, this, where we are now financially, gives us the ability to maybe make some minor modifications over at that gym as well.
Okay, that's good, thanks.
And Mrs. Jensen, just to clarify, they're not by priority, the alternates are not. So I don't.
Oh, I know, I understand
Okay,
that.
all right, good.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're kind of thrown up there, and that would be the board's tough decisions.
Sure.
Depending on how much, money we've got with that, so yeah. So now he's getting to where I was wanting the pulse check. So now we're talking about a transition and perhaps a change in plan that gives us I think Dr. Way used the word, and it's cafetorium. Okay, there are districts that have that, so maybe we can bring that element sooner than later. But we all concluded, and this is just our office sitting this, that doesn't mean the performing arts goes out of the master plan. The full-blown performing arts auditorium stays in the master plan, but whenever I was making artwork on this is, what can I get in the interim?
Right.
What can I get in that 7-9 years, whatever Joe's going to tell us that we can go back to the well and get more? And so that is where we need to take a pulse. We can go to the original plan and say, no, we're going to make tough decisions on this, chop it down. But the way the cost estimates are coming in, I think the information that Joe's going to give us a little later, we're thinking, could we slide in a couple of these interim, and let me let you continue, but that is the change in the plan. I know you guys are hawking this, but I wanted to make sure to underscore that is the potential change.
Well, the only final piece that I wanted to add to that is, when we talk about the Performing Arts Auditorium, there are many, many pieces to that, and it may be that you decide, yes, guys, we'll go forward with the auditorium and the lobby, but we might hold off on the black box, the changing dressing rooms, all the restroom facilities, the storage, the fly loft, the scene shop. I mean, there are so many pieces in that, but you may decide that we might want to, knock down a couple of those in this first phase as well.
Aaron, any additional questions?
I have no more questions.
Oh, I got more presentation coming, I'm sorry.
Several, or 2 or 3 slides.
Oh, no, I was pretty much through.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I didn't think you covered the alternates 1 and 2 football field stadium.
Well, I mean, we talked, I didn't give a lot of specificity, but the stadium, basically, when we look at alternates 1 and 2, it is complete artificial turf, urethane track around it, 400 meter, 8-lane track. There will be bleachers on the hillside backing up to the cafeteria space. We'll have a press box in the middle of that, and then there will be some additional concessions work on the main building itself feeding out toward the football stadium. And this will be fully lit as well, so you'll be able to do nighttime games and so forth.
Please be mindful that again, we worked on this Wednesday, and Arts went to work on it, so I'll ask a couple questions that I don't know. So this would include a potential transition, would we, to use the cafeteria space for the athletic stadium in the interim to getting a concession that would, or did that idea not
We
gain traction?
actually added a concession area that would backfeed the stadium, that would also front feed the lobby of the performance gymnasium too.
That's what I think I'm
So that
seeing,
it
but
will
I wanted to
serve
point
both,
that out.
and that's included in the cost of the new performance gymnasium space with this concession piece up in gray here.
So perhaps as President calls for questions or feedback, in my mind, Art, if this is where we were at Wednesday, there are kind of a couple that'd be revisions to the plan. That would be that interim performing arts. That would be maybe, I like the idea of that shared space. And if you look at the emo conference, that's be well beyond what most schools. I don't know, Doug's very familiar with the other facilities around there, but I'll say that, write that mouth check out here publicly. Now, if you look at the Gateway Conference, that is not what you would find. And we're probably somewhere between as the largest school in the emo. So I thought, well, that's an idea I wanted to explore, but I do not want to explore what the board does not want to explore. And so that's one part of it. The second part is a little, I'm going to dumb this down for me, but a little less stadium in terms of the amenities like the concession. And again, we would use the cafeteria area. So instead of maybe, in my mind, walking to the back of the stadium for the concession, you might walk 100 yards over to the cafeteria, which we would now have that as an area that you could get concessions and then go back to the football field. That's the two changes to kind of, is that all correct?
Well, no, you are correct. But we also had a piece in the stadium where the teams could go at halftime too.
Yeah.
It's kind of an outdoor field house, if you will, which is a smaller structure. And that is not included in this. So we did leave a few things off that could be implemented at a later date. But I think, quite frankly, the performing arts is probably going to be more significant between now and then.
Mr. President, I will shut down after this clarify question. Do the revisions, are they reflected in the cost estimate?
We're chewing through those right now.
Okay.
I have the final numbers, but I'd like to vet them first.
So those cost estimates that were on the previous slide do not reflect the revisions that we're talking about today? Well,
those costs are still valid, but they don't take into account what the savings would be, and looking at some things like increasing the cost of the renovations here, for example.
Thank you. I'm done. I'll quit trying to play stump the architect.
Aaron, with that additional conversation, do you have anything else you want to add?
I do not have any questions. I guess if my pulse check is, I would like to see what the cost savings are, if we do a package, or what the estimated cost savings are. And I know that there are tough decisions to be made, and I completely get that. But boy, we've got a great arts program with our band, and I would sure love to have a place to let them shine. So just kind of keeping that in mind. But if we can still, pull things out, I'd love to see any way that we can save money on this.
Well, we hope to give you all the information to make the right decision, so you're not kind of flying blind, and that'll be yet to come.
Michael.
I don't have any questions.
I figured Michael knew the drill by now. That he had to say anything.
I don't know, this is a new board, so I wanted to make sure. No, I don't have any questions. I would just, same thing there. I really think package that together with savings, anything we can save is going to be huge.
I don't really have any questions, comments. From what I'm seeing, the more we can jam into that first bit, the better. The fewer alternates we get. I'm just repetitively seeing that in multiple different situations. Just jam it all into one, Art, please.
We'll see what we can do.
I don't have any. They've made the comments that I was going to make and questions, so I don't have anything to add.
Can you explain the difference in permitting slash zoning between the city of Wright City and the county? Do you know those differences? Is there differences?
One of the big differences that we found in Wright City is you do not have a zoning overlay for schools. Your schools all have a dedicated, it's a temporary occupancy, as it is in most municipalities, but they don't give you the ability necessarily to go in and develop a school right over in agricultural or residential area you have to come in and kind of re-permit the boundary itself. Now, what does that mean? It's not terribly complicated, but it's a little more so than we've encountered before. But in a situation, we would never want to straddle a municipality and a county with a school district, with a school property like this, because you could have different ramifications on the use of that. And since you're conditional use and they review it every year for permit occupancy, it makes it a whole lot easier when you're within one. I don't know if I fully answered your question.
Sure. I mean, I know it's complicated the way the line is drawn through our property as it is. You know, I'm looking at it here on the computer. It's definitely, you know, a quarter in city limits and 3/4 in the county. And that's why I didn't know if there would be permitting issues, zoning issues, either way.
You'd have both. We have, once, a long time ago, we tried to develop a property for a school that was straddling, and we really quickly came to the conclusion we had to have it under one, just because the way the facility was treated by the different municipalities.
And you might be able to tell me if I'm wrong or not, but I was under the understanding that the city of Wright City didn't own their water and sewer anymore. So how would that affect getting our water and sewer?
I think you're exactly correct. I think that was sold off, but I think that the city still maintains control of that from a permitting standpoint. And to our understanding, we still need to have the entire property within the city boundary to.
Well, I know you get charged different rates based on whether you're in or out. So, I mean, from a water perspective, there's two different rates. I pay, like, I don't live in the city limits, and I pay a higher rate for my water because I'm outside. So I do know that. I don't know, I mean, it might not make from an expense perspective, but I know there's those differences.
That's all I have.
Okay.
Yeah, I feel better after you explain the cafetorium.
I have nothing further tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
See you next month.
Yes, indeed. Thanks.
I get you and Joe to get a house and live together for the next 6 months. Or how long you need to be here. Well, Joe, I don't know if you can live with Joe more than 6 months.
My wife would tell you that's a bad move.
All right, Dr. Berger, next.
Yeah, I believe Joe Kinder, he'll take the stage.
Yeah. I don't have a presentation. I'm just going to talk to you a little bit tonight and make sure you're comfortable with the plan before we
Do
come
me a
back
favor,
next month.
Speak into that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, or if you get closer, I think it's picking it up.
Yeah, or you
Thank
you
you.
can how I smell. I can
He's
use
fine.
that way too. First of all, congratulations. What a transformative day for the students of Wright City, and I know that this is a long time coming, having worked with the district for a long time, so congratulations. Happy for you, happy for the kids of Wright City. Nothing like surviving 2 years of unprecedented times and then deciding you're going to build a high school in the middle of all of this, right? So just wanted to come down and talk to you a little bit about the plan of finance. As you remember, we've got a lot of moving pieces, a lot of moving parts. We've got the general obligation bonds that you passed up to your capacity, and we're going to utilize those to the extent we can. But then we also did that levy transfer with the idea that that levy that's going to move over to Fund 4 because you don't have the capacity simply by state cap to use that general obligation debt above that certain amount that we went for, the $37 million, that we'll use some of that to fund a lease purchase, which is debt that comes out of your Fund 4. In the midst of all of this, we've started to see interest rates rise. You know, if you're looking at a historical 60-year look at municipal market rates or rates for school districts in Missouri, they look, you know, starting back in the 1950s, they'd be like right here, and then we slowly work our way down, and then in 2012, they'd drop to the floor. And they'd kind of stay down there and bump around for a little bit. They've come off the floor a little bit, but they're nowhere near where they were. So from a historical perspective, we're still even doing a lot better than we were in 2007, 2008, before the Great Recession in terms of borrowing that money. That being said, we still do see interest rates going up. We've got the Fed talking about raising rates at, instead of 50 basis points at a time, 75 basis points at a time. So instead of 0.5%, 0.75%, which oftentimes translates into our market or into the market that you all access to borrow money. So we want to make sure that we're cautious and careful about eliminating some of that interest rate risk for you all, which is the risk that interest rates go up that increases the cost of you to, or the cost for you to borrow money, to access money to get that capital going to build a high school. So we want to make sure we're minimizing that. We've got a good plan for that that takes into account 3 different factors for you that I think you're going to like, but I want to make sure we talk to you a little bit about it. So the first is taking care of that interest rate risk, and the plan is to come with your entire issuance of your general obligation debt, all $37 million, with the premium that we talked about to drive some additional dollars for that construction project next month. The plan is also to match that with a lease that gets you in that $52, $53 million range, okay? So knowing that you've got a little bit more bandwidth than that in terms of the financing plan that we put together, we want to make sure we're getting you as much access as we can legally. So part 2 of that is we've got to keep the IRS happy. So you all are able to issue your debt tax exempt. Now, it's both federally and state exempt from income tax. So the people that are willing to buy those bonds, and remember, we take our 200 plus, 250 plus institutional bond salesmen and auction your bonds off in $5,000 increments. So all $52 million that you're going to receive were auctioned off in $5,000 increments to whoever's willing to pay the highest price. And in order to do that, you are able to issue those tax exempts. So those investors, whether they buy 5,000 or they buy 50 million, don't have to pay income tax on the interest that they earn on those bonds. But because of that, the IRS keeps a close watch on you. And one of the things they want to be able to certify is that you're not issuing debt, particularly right now in a rising interest rate environment, to put it in the bank and make money, because you can actually, as a school district, invest those in taxable, with limitations, taxable instruments and not pay tax on that. So we have to be able to certify that within reason, within 36 months of issuing that debt, which would be sometime in May of 2022, that you're going to expend 85% or more of the money that you take in. So we've got to get your special tax counsel, who has been Gilmore and Bell for years and years and years, comfortable with the fact that you can get that $52 million or 85% of that spent by May of 25, with a target opening date of January 2026. So we're going to take you all the way as close as we can get you and leave some room for you to move forward in terms of going out and getting some additional capital. Again, the plan was originally for $58.1 million of total capital for you all to come with. So we're talking 52, 53, somewhere in there, wherever we get bond counsel comfortable with. The third thing that does for you, though, is provide some flexibility. You all are trying to figure out what you're doing in terms of how we're going to bid this. How many projects are we going to go forward with? So it allows you some flexibility on what you're going to decide from a project standpoint, but it also allows you to get that money in the door, earn some interest, and then maybe you don't have to pay a guy like me to come in and issue the remaining part of that. And it's not just me. Like Steve, we don't have to pay somebody like Steve to come in and issue the rest of that. Maybe bids come in better. Maybe you had a couple projects and earn some interest and you still don't have to do the lease. So this provides you some flexibility, and taking on $6 million of interest rate risk really is okay in terms of what your levy's generating. And in fact, when you're generating levy, it may be that your assessed value has grown faster than what we projected. And so you may have some additional cash available as well. So we think that this is a really nice balance between what you're allowed to go get and preventing interest rate risk, but keeping you flexible so that we're not issuing $58.1 million and it's sitting there in your bank account and the bids come in at 52 or 53 and you're left. You've paid us to do an issue because you're going to be charged by the size of the issue, and you've paid everybody else and you're paying interest on that. With the way that our market works, in order to lock in the lowest rates possible, to find those investors, we want to find end users. We want to find, believe it or not, people that are willing to invest in the school district over that full 20-year time. We're not looking for people that are going to trade those accounts. We want people to buy, because that means they're buying at the lowest possible threshold. One of the things we have to do is guarantee them a return on their investment. Right now, that's between 7 to 10 years. Maybe even a little bit longer is kind of the industry standard, where you can get that yield that you really want, the lowest possible yield. So if we did issue $58 million, you didn't need all of it, you would be locked out over a period of time where you'd have to pay the principal and interest on that, so we could guarantee that return on investment to those investors. That's how it's a little bit different than our mortgage or our car. But so anyway, next month the idea would be we're moving behind the scenes. We actually started moving on the night of the election. We talked with our team because we saw interest rates going up. As soon as things started getting approved, we wanted to start moving. Our regulatory process, your regulatory process for being able to issue tax-exempt debt is monitored by 3 different federal agencies, 2 different state agencies. We've got a lot of hoops we have to jump through on the backside of this in order to get this done, which is about an 8-week process, 6 to 8-week process. We're trying to truncate that, shorten that as best we can. We're going to go out and get a credit rating from the district, and we anticipate you all will continue to have that high credit rating you've had in the past, similar to a credit score for borrowing money. We're trying to get all that down. Hopefully next month we'll have 2 items for you to approve. A resolution authorizing the sale, issuance, sale, and delivery of $37 million of that general obligation debt. And then, like I said, somewhere in the $8, $9, $10 million range, depending on where we get comfortable with your bond counsel. But it'll be in that $52 to $53 million of total money that will go into your bank accounts to use for construction projects. I say bank accounts because one will sit, leases work different than GEOs. So one will go right into your capital project fund, one you'll have to requisition those funds. But that's the plan right now. Just wanted to make sure you all felt comfortable with that next month you'd be approving not 1, but 2. You know, typically if we thought rates weren't going anywhere, we might wait on the lease side of things, or we might even break this thing up a little bit. We want to get those interest rates locked in for you while it works within the plan of finance that was the beginning process that started this process, before you put the election to vote. We want to make sure we can execute on that plan for you and provide you that flexibility moving forward.
I have no questions. Alice?
Nope.
I don't.
Thank you. No.
I'm good, appreciate it.
Me either. Get us more money.
So basically next month is when we put the rubber to the road and sign papers and stuff like that.
Correct, and then about 2 weeks after your board meeting, hopefully we'll have that money in your account, and then you can start investing it and earning some interest, and hopefully getting some additional projects done or whatever you need to get done. So.
Okay, then in August is when we adjust our rates and stuff, our tax rates and stuff like that.
That's right. That's right.
So that's when it'll be 99 cents on the debt and additional 20.
Correct. That's right. That's right. And we'll help you with that as well. It's not too terrible a process, but we've not. So. Right.
Anything else? Thank you for your time, Joe.
Thanks. See you next month.
Thanks, Joe.
We come out of here.
All right. So some administrivia. So there's the board meeting schedule. So we're talking about the 3rd Thursday of the month, except for June, the last Thursday of the month, and then in August, the aforementioned set the tax rate, August 25th, and then next year we would meet on Tuesday, 4/18 after the 23 election for another board reorganization. So, and then one thing we need to work into there is a budget workshop. We can talk on 5/19 as to exactly when we want to do that, or we can set a date tonight. So look at the board dates, the Thursday nights, except for 4/18, which is a Tuesday, I'm assuming. So any questions on the continued Thursday night meetings? Okay, and then you all want to set a board workshop for a budget tonight, or you want to wait till 5/19 to set it?
I'd rather wait till May
Please.
personally.
All right, so it cannot be May 22nd, 23rd, or 24th. I will not be in town.
I won't either.
I don't either.
So when are you all gone? Will you be back on the 25th of May?
I will not.
Not at all.
So do we need to have, in June, will you all be available? So when in the early part of June? Again, we'll do it next month, but be thinking about the early part of June then.
I have to check my work calendar.
When does it have to be done by?
Well, the budget's going to get approved on June 30th. So if we want to tell him to put something in the budget, he's going to need 2 or 3 weeks to monkey with it. So if we had that budget workshop, and plus he has to come up with, you know, what his recommendation is going to be for what he's going to do to the salary schedules and all that. So that's what we got to talk about. And so we got to talk about what that means and stuff like that. So
early June.
yeah, so you'd be thinking about the May 19th meeting, and when in early June you're available. So anyway, I need a motion to approve the following board meeting dates as presented on the screen up there.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and second. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Next one's calendar revision based upon the AMI days we had and the snow days. Dr. Berger?
Yeah, just as we were confronted with in last year, was despite having 5 days of AMI and we still had a rough winter, that comes out to 2 days over the AMI. So the question is, you know, we are required to go 1,044. I'll try not to stray too far on this, but used to be schools went 174 days, 1,044 hours. When the 4-day a week came into play, almost all school districts in Missouri were like 1,150, and some into the 1,200 hours. As the 4-day a week became more popular, that school 4 days a week, you saw districts across the state, and as the regulations of the state law was softened, it really came down to just hours. And they kept that constant at 1,044. So you saw districts move to 160 days. I think if you did the math, this is from memory, not doing the math right now, I think you can get it down to 145 days if you did the 4-day a week. And you even saw Wright City move from 174 to 171. Very small movement. But telling you all that to say that we still, as our calendar is planned, are well exceed the minimum of 1,044. And in fact, if the 2 days are relieved, that's 2 student contact days are relieved by the Board of Education tonight, moving our end date, while I close my notes, for the calendar right now, we would get out June 2nd. If we relieve those days, we'll stay as the last day being May 27th, and we will still be almost 100 days over the minimum.
100 hours.
100 goodness. Hours.
A lot of time
3
in
people.
that year.
Did I say that earlier? Is that why you guys were all so ready to jump me? So yes, 100 hours over the minimum.
Okay.
And just would say that all the same, not to beat the board to the punch, because we may need to discuss that, but all the same points from last year as a little walk down memory lane. The legislature forced our start date, took away our local control. And why we knew this was going to be, have implications beyond what their intent was, is we don't necessarily subsidize our regular education by summer school. There are a lot of school districts that do, that try to get hours to subsidizing the regular ed, so they actually make money on summer school. Well, we certainly want participation for summer school, but when you have, even, ending on the 27th, you're going to have the end of the school year butted up right against summer school, and I may just be crying on that just to make the point. But the issue comes up often of, well, we lose 2 student contact days, and I think those are critical too. But I still stated the statement I said last year, and I think is consensus across the state, I think it was consensus of the board. Makeup days in June don't have the value of those makeup days, whether they be in, let's say, February, January, February, March, or that day. So, and then the last thing I just mention is we've got an AMI survey out. We've got those results back in. We're anxious to share those. I think we have them slated for next month. We certainly got to make our AMI days more productive. You're going to like, I think, some of the feedback that our students, teachers, and patrons gave us on that. I think it's going to be useful. We're going to kind of wrestle with that between now and next month. But all that to say, whenever it all gets thrown in the hopper, the administration is recommending to relieve the 2 student contact days.
When does summer school start?
Summer school would start.
Well,
it's in flux right now
because of this.
Because
Because of this.
Okay,
Our initial our initial date of summer school starting would have been June 1st.
And it's so perfect when it's just one solid month, the 20 days of June, and, but that's, you know, that still can happen if we relieve the days. Otherwise, we're gonna be at least June, because right now it's the 3rd, so at least June 4th. And it would literally be back to back, end on one, if that's the summer school calendar that we had approved by DESI.
And when's the Warren County Fair start? Is it the first week of July or
It's
last?
it's the second week. It's the 5th through the 9th.
Okay, so it's after 4th of
6th
July.
through the 9th, yeah.
So the good news is we can get summer school in its entirety before the county fair.
Yeah, and I know those are all redundant points we've made, and I'm not trying to shorten the conversation, but yeah, and even summer school into July is even more of a challenge. You know, then you gotta get through the 4th, the holiday, and parents will go to it will be in pain. It will not be successful.
Any questions on the calendar?
Well,
Revisions?
if we started summer school on June 6th, we're still out, July 1st is Friday. That's still 20 days of summer school, correct?
It is.
How many, and our policy is that for our teachers, if we forgive a student day, they're 2 student days, they work 1 day.
Yeah, that is
Correct.
also correct.
Okay.
Or Ms. Williams.
You can call me Aaron. I don't necessarily have any questions. I mean, I feel the same way I felt about it last year. I'm not a fan of waiving student days. I think that they're in there for a reason. I think, you know, hopefully we have days that our students are in front of our teachers for a reason. And I get that the last 2 days are probably not all those things, but the last 2 days are going to be the last 2 days no matter when they fall. That's my thought.
Any other comments?
So, I assume you're a fan of getting rid of these 2 days. And to get summer school started, any other reasonings? How are our teachers feeling about this? Are they going to be able to fit in everything they planned for the second semester?
They would appreciate having, I don't think that the planning of the second semester is the issue here. I think having a day to maybe for summer school teachers to set up, prepare, open boxes, get their stuff unpacked, get their stuff set in rooms would be nice to have. And if we don't do this, we are finishing one day and starting summer school likely the next. Then you also, if you go into July, you run the risk of having summer school and ADA factoring into 2 separate fiscal years. And so that makes our business department, so if we run summer school in July, the July days would go into the next fiscal year. And so those calculations would just be more effort on our business department.
Memorial Day is May 30th.
Mhm.
I would see it to be real hard. I'm with Aaron. I don't want to give up those days, but I feel like those 2 days are going to be real difficult to do any amount of teaching. I have nothing else to say.
Anybody else? So, is there a motion to waive in the 2 student days to the 21-22 calendar?
I think Aaron has another question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
If this is going to continue to happen, right? The state legislators have set when we can start school. That's out of our control. We're going to continue to have snow days because we live in Missouri. So if this is going to continue to happen, then I think we need to figure out a way within our calendar so that every year we're not forgiving days.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, that goes back to October, where, you know, we had that October break. Let's not have that October break.
Well, but we approved our calendar already.
I know, but I mean, I understand that, but you know, I've said this in the past, you know, you look at that big break you have there in October during hunting season. I mean, I think isn't that when the rifle season starts for deers? It coincides with that, I think. I think it does. The youth fund, that's it. So, thank you. But the issue is, I mean, you go back to October and you get rid of those nice fall days, and you get the kids in school, then you build your equity up into, so that when you have the snow days in January and February, you have those days built in.
Right, but we also have semester classes.
But again, the problem is,
teachers are building
but when we're giving
curriculum
those days up in October,
that would be in a second semester.
that's first semester.
First semester, and we're talking about snow in second
I
semester.
know, but the thing is.
So the days aren't equal.
But the problem we have right now is the first semester goes over to Christmas break.
Right.
So if you took away days in October, I wish you could pull it, when do we prove that account? But if you took away days in October, then you would have more first semester days before Christmas.
Everybody's tracking with you, and I think Ms. Williams' point is that you also factor in we always try to get an equal number of days or as close to equal as we can on each semester. So it has a secondary implication, and it does. The other thing I would tell you is, as I think somebody mentioned here, the 23 calendar has been approved. However, and when we go through that process, it's a committee, has parents on it, teachers, administrators. We talk about some of those things. We can impress upon that committee, and keep in mind, we're looking at 24, unless obviously the board could take it up again if that's what you wish to do. But we can press upon that committee that we need to consider maybe more makeup days. An example would be yesterday, Monday, coming off Easter break. Now, nobody wants to give that up, but if we're very candid and say, confronted with the possibility of going into June, it is, what it is, so to speak.
Yeah.
Then the committee needs to consider that more. If that's 2 days we're looking for, whether it's one in October and that we move the calendar up and don't take that fall break, or and then call that a third makeup day, face-to-face makeup day now, or yesterday, I guess would have been. Those are things that we can kind of impress upon them, and then see where it goes. The other thing, I know this sounds unconventional, is shorten the calendar, shorten the school year to 169, 168, because you're still well within the 1,044. But I don't really know I know what that does, and that says we don't have this discussion. Or maybe there's less chance of it until the hard winter comes, and then we're potentially we're asking for relief on that. But it's got multiple tentacles in this, implications that fall outside of it. But I guess the issue at hand is, after we threw all that around with the admin team, waived the 2 days, and certainly I can express that sentiment to the calendar committee next year when that time comes around.
What determines the days above the minimum? Like, is that something
Local.
the board asks for, you ask for?
No, local. We just say, and really it's by tradition, but probably more than anything. I don't know when it was lowered down from 174 to 171 to some point, and it may have been a give, like for PD days.
It was,
That's typical.
the teacher contract days didn't change when we
Right.
did that, student contact days did.
Yeah. So at some point, the administration was asking for more PD days. They said, let's give PD days and give up student contact days. So we moved to 171. If we moved to 169, let's say, don't get me wrong, we could absolutely use the PD time. There's no doubt about that. It's just, there's just something a little bit that makes you a little cautious whenever you start taking away classroom student contact days, as is the issue now.
Anything else? Okay, is there a motion to waive the 2 student days for the 21 and 22 calendar?
So moved.
Second.
Any more discussion? All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed?
Aye.
I heard 6-1. Health and wellness program evaluation.
Wake her up.
Yeah.
Good to see you.
Good to see you guys.
Feel a little neglectful towards her, so I've expressed this. During the COVID, I was talking to her
Daily.
at least 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
Now, if I'm in the middle school, I
It's
drop
nice
in
to get
and
up
say,
here and not talk COVID. Not gonna lie.
So this is the health program evaluation. It's several pages long, but our goal is obviously to keep our kids in school, to exclude the sick ones that need to go home. I am always looking for opportunities to bring in like the dentist comes in, they do everything a normal dentist would do, so that's access to medical care for our kids. We had the RV bus come, which COVID stopped that, but next year they promised me that I'll be able to make that appointment for our district, and we'll do. So when we did it in 2019, I believe, we only did it at Middle and West. Just because it was like a trial, we didn't really know how it's gonna work. It was like one of the most amazing things to watch those kids get off that RV bus with the brand new pair of glasses. It was really neat. So I'm excited to get that back into our district, because I feel like vision is a very, I think I have like 40 kids that need glasses that don't have access to that, just in my building. And I know other buildings are in that. So if you'll scroll down to like, I'll tell you when, just kind of scroll. Okay, so you can go down a little bit more because I know my building best. Yeah, right there. So I did highlight each building, enrollment, and then something I kind of added this year because it is a point that I have to submit a bunch of stuff to the state, but how many health office visits we have, and if I added all in the district, that we've had about 15,000 kids come into our offices and need medical attention, and we average about 5% send home. So we treat and keep most of our kids that we see. And then each building has, life-threatening allergies, mental health, daily meds, med treatments, things like that, that we see on a daily basis. And then other things we're part of, do the backpack program, the Red Ribbon Week. There's a bunch, all of the different nurses do a little bit different committees, but what else?
So on those health office visits,
yeah.
How much did COVID skew those?
You know what,
I'd be interested
honestly,
to go back to pre-COVID.
yeah. So honestly, we actually see a lot less than we did pre-COVID. I'd say when I first started working in the district, I saw about 100 kids a day in my office alone, and now I average probably like maybe 60. So although it's busy, it's not as busy as it was pre-COVID. I don't know why.
Well, I mean, because
I do know.
If a kid came in and got tested, or
Yeah.
a teacher came in and got tested,
Right.
you got to count that as a visit, right?
So we didn't count all those as visits because it was crazy then. So we've done 625 COVID tests in the district. No, we didn't count those. Just because it was a madhouse during COVID. So those were not counted, but people that came in and were sick presenting with symptoms and then were COVID tested, we did count those. So kind of different. But like we had a lot of drive-through tests. We offered that where you could just bring your kid up, drive through. I walked outside, we swabbed, came back 15 minutes later, we called with the results. So just access to healthcare. A lot of our kids don't have a primary care doctor, don't ever see a physician unless they're in need of ER visit. So that bridge, I'm trying to get that bridge instead of having this big gap for access to medical care. That's my biggest thing. Another exciting thing that we're doing this year is in May, we are hosting a school readiness clinic, and the Visiting Nurse Association is gonna come in. And for our middle, again, this is a new thing, so we're trying middle high. All our 7th graders going into 8th grade will need additional required immunizations, and then all of our 11th graders currently going into 12th grade will also require another immunization that's required for the state. So we currently have like 150 kids that don't have that vaccine yet. I know we still have a lot of time till next year, but our nurses are making calls to parents, setting it up. There's a lot of people that are like, oh yeah, I'm interested, send home the paperwork, I'll sign it. So they're gonna do kind of like our flu vaccines that we've had in the past, where we just get the consents and they get the immunization while they're at school. So simple. And I'm really excited about that. So we'll see how that goes. And then we may be able to do it for like our kindergartners coming in if they need any. And then possibly seeing in September, doing another one, just depending on how well this one goes for those kids that missed this one. So, yeah. And that doesn't cost the district anything because as long as they get a certain number of kiddos, which I know they will, I think we already have that many, then it doesn't cost the nurses to come out to do that. So, pretty cool. Anything else?
I'm so proud of you guys.
Well, I'm really proud of my team. You know, I think I give them a lot of work, and they do it. They take it and do well with it. So it's very fun to lead the team. So.
Well, and those extras are really important, like the dental and the
Yes, yeah, it's incredible. You know, my kids have gone to this district for their entirety. I've lived here for 15 years, so. I had no idea. I got the paper form home and I was like, oh, the dentist, we go see a dentist. We don't need that service. But once I started working here, I was like, oh, they fill cavities, they pull teeth. This is like a real thing. So it's really cool. And I think that my building, it's in there somewhere, but I think that the first time they came, they saw like 48 kids, and then they're coming back in May and they have like 60 kids on the list to see. So it's pretty cool. It's pretty neat. We actually have 2 dental teams coming this next time, which is, we've never had 2 dental teams. So, yeah.
You do an awesome job.
Thank you. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Anything else for the nurse? Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Policy committee, Jeremy?
Yeah, this year, policy committee was charged with looking at sections B and C, school board governance and operation, along with general school administration. In addition, we looked at GCBDA and GDBDA. While there was no changes to sections B and C, while we looked at the other 2 policies, we noticed that there was 1 or 2 sentences that didn't line up like they should when it talked about winter break underneath the holiday section, so we're making changes to that. One of the reasons we looked at those 2 additional policies is because of AMI days. So this was the first year we had AMI. And so we thought we'd have to change policy based on how that would go with short-term leave, but it was not what we envisioned a typical AMI session to be. We expected emergency management to take care of roads for the first hour or 2 and then our people to come in. But the weather was so bad this year that a lot of the time Dr. Berger called at an admin day where our personnel did not come in. So we're asking to, our policy committee was looking at punting those 2 and bringing them back next year after we have a full AMI, what we consider a real AMI session next year, to look at those policies again to see what we need to do to change them. We thought we'd be able to do that this year, but like I said, the weather did not really line up with what we thought AMI would look like. As Dr. Berger mentioned, we have an AMI survey that we're going to look at those results, and that's why we want to punt those 2 till next policy committee. And I believe next year during policy committee, we're looking over section D, fiscal management, taxes, grants, budget, things like that. So that's what we're looking for next year, along with these 2 policies, bringing these back, and whatever else comes up between now and then.
Any questions for Jeremy? Okay, the next item, I'm assuming we've voted on those in the first reading of policy update 2022A. Well, the reason I say that is because I see GDBDA.
Yeah, that one's in there, but now we're.
Okay, so we're not voting on what you did, just what MSBA did.
Yep.
So that's all that was overlap there, that's all. Okay, next one is Boys and Girls Club of America. Dr. Berger?
Dr. Way and I both have been kind of chipping away at this, but Dr. Way, I'll let you introduce our guest.
Yes, so first of all, Dr. Berger came to me about 2 months ago and said, was asking questions about our after-school program, and let him know that we started that a couple years ago based on the need that we had in the community. And Dr. Berger got me in contact with Karen, the CEO, who's here, and then Mark Pruitt is the board president. He's here as well, and so they're here to answer any questions. But when we had conversations with them, we, and I think I said this to Karen, I said, what's the downside? Like, what am I not catching here? Because there's a hole here and I just can't find it and it's upsetting me. And, but the more we talked, I just think it's a great thing for our kids and our parents. You know, right now, we currently charge our parents $30 to $40 a week for after-school care. They can bring in a program that charges our parents $25 one time for the whole year, which is incredible. They can extend the hours past what we currently do. They have better programming, and we will still provide snacks for them as well. And basically all we're doing is doing what we do now by providing space, recreational gym, ability for them to lock up their stuff. The only, I guess, thing that we're working through is right now we have 2 locations. We have east and west. And so we'll have to go down to 1 location. So working with transportation to bus kids from east to west is what we're looking at for the start of the school year. But it seems like a really good thing for our community and our parents. And anything you want to add, Karen, or anything I missed?
I don't think so.
Okay. So we're bringing the MOU to you tonight for your consideration, and we would like to start this program beginning of August and get everybody on board and get the paperwork going and let our parents know that this will be something. We've also talked to our current staff and we talked to Karen, and sort of like we did with our bus vendor, you know, trying to keep as much of that staff that's interested in staying on. And so we've had conversations with them about that as well. So.
What's your recommendation, Dr. Berger?
Oh, and again, as Dr. Wade mentioned, we just cannot find a hold of this, and that, you heard that from the first meeting, that Mary actually sat in with, too. We couldn't, sit at the onside to it, so excited about it. If the board wants to make this change, I absolutely support it, and full steam ahead.
Did Echo Wright have any issues with, they think they could transport kids, any issues staffing anything?
No, I talked to Jeff. No, we're just working out times and how that would look. But, you know, at one time we were thinking maybe east would be the better site, but when we're looking at transportation west, and just, we seem to have more at west anyway, just for our parents. So east gets out a little later, so they would just come maybe 10 or 15 minutes after the program starts. So it's not a big deal. We can drop them off right at the door. And so we think that's the best way to go right now.
What's the adult to kid ratio? It depends on the setting that they're in, but traditionally we try to stay between 1 and 12. If they're in a large gym space, we might get up to 115, 1 to 20. But typically, if they're in a large gym space, we try to have 2 staff in there, just because accidents happen in large gym spaces.
The thing that impressed me the most, I think, well, not the whole program impressed me, but is they have it's structured, and they have homework time and people to help with homework and things like that, so the kids get a little extra help at their schools now and get their homework done, and if they're of that age, and you know, things are more structured, so it's more of an enrichment than just babysitting.
The fact that it could be done for $25 a year is absolutely insane and such a benefit to so many. That is awesome.
Well, here, I don't even need to take a vote on it.
I have a quick question. What happens with, say, parent complaints? Who do they go to?
Look at her raising her hand.
Now, Dr. Way, I'll start this. You please finish up, because really, I guess I tried to add myself in there because I thought this could be well received and say, but I've been chipping away. Hand this off to Dr. Way, and he's done a great job of kind of crossing the T's, well, everything. But we'll continue to be partners with them, and we'll support them in every way we can. But the discipline, it is their program. And, you know, so for the most part, we will, what is it, good neighbors, good fences make good neighbors, you know. There will be some boundaries that are fully transparent and where we don't know they are, but we'll continue to be good partners with them. Dr. Wade?
Yeah, and we'll work with those parents, and you know, some of the things that they ask of parents, or any additional information they can get about their kid, you know, like what are their grades, if they have an IEP, you know, if parents are open to it, we can definitely, you know, let them know what works best for their kid during the day, and try to, like Dr. Berger said, just try to be a partner with them. But it is a separate program, you know, than what we have now. Right now, it kind of all encompasses Wright City, and it would be something different, yeah.
Karen's wanting to add to that too, Mr. President, if you, she's interested in that. Please, Karen, yeah, does that sound, or we?
It does. I mean, our biggest thing is we want to be a meaningful partner, and we want it to work for both sides. We're coming into your space, so we need to respect that. We're working with your students. So, you know, we want to be a good partner and manage discipline to the best of our ability. It doesn't mean that we might not need to sit down and talk about a student or two, but I think that's just part of the partnership, and I do that now with other partner school districts. So we're used to doing it, and we're excited about the opportunity. I have no doubt there will be a bump or two in the road, because that always happens, but our staff team and board is just very, very focused on doing this very well, and, you know, really being of service to your community, and expanding our footprint at the same time.
And Dave, we looked at their handbook, I mean, it pretty much spelled.
Is gonna be showing up at board meetings to complain, or is it gonna be on her? You know what, I didn't know what to expect when something does go right. Good question.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but this also opens up some other avenues for our parents and our kids for other programs that could benefit some of our families.
Absolutely. I mean, so we traditionally provide an after-school program. That is what right now we've done for 71 years in St. Charles County. But that is the $25 program. But we, at our independent sites, we offer a full-day summer program as well. And so while that is not on the table right now, because we need to start with one thing and do it really well, there is opportunity to provide additional services to families, just at a much lower cost. And, you know, that is a barrier. That is a barrier to so many of our families. Cost, transportation are the two biggest barriers. And so with your help with transportation and our help with the cost, we think it's gonna be a good partnership.
Any other questions?
Is there so you're, you said, I'm sorry, 1 to 2 for 12 kiddos, 1 to 12?
One staff.
One staff for 12. So are those folks, do you have folks waiting in the wings, or are you, hiring from our community? Do you have plan B for when folks call out sick? How does that work? Can you pull from other places, or are you at our gym running aftercare?
I mean, so yeah, hopefully not, but you know, I've done it. I mean, so multiple things. We definitely want to start with your existing staff. If there is a way that we could then hire them onto our staff, again, that is an important piece, because again, it's our program, and I need all of my team to follow the same policies, to go through the same trainings, all of those things. So we want to start with the existing staff, but we also are always looking to hire additional staff. I mean, you know, working with kids is a work of the heart, but it's the work part. You know, I was in the classroom for 9 years. It is definitely part of it. So we have a really good pool though that we can, you know, connect with, because we have good relationships with Lindenwood and the community college in St. Peter's, and so we have some good avenues to pull from.
Anything else? If not, I need a motion to approve the memorandum of understanding for the Boys and Girls Club after-school care.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and second. Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? I heard 7-0. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
And we look forward to being a partner. Thank you.
We're gonna sneak out.
So drive safe.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is OT, PT, and speech bid. Dr. Berger? Away.
Me.
Yeah.
So we went out, every 3 years, we go out for bid for our related services of occupational therapy, physical therapy, and then our speech therapist at the Early Childhood Center. We have 2 speech therapists that we hire within our district and an assistant, but they are very, very hard to find. So at our Early Childhood Center, we contract with Star Schools. So this year, we went out for bid. This was the 3rd year, and we received 6 bids back. Amy and I went through those. And again, I would like to recommend continuing our contract with Star Schools. They obviously are providing excellent services to our students. They know our students, they know our parents, they know our teachers. the therapist provide excellent services to those students. I can't say enough good things about them, so I would like to continue using them. We have used them for, I've been here for 25 years, and I was talking to one of the therapists, and they had been here several years before I started, so we've been using them for almost 30 years now. So, I did a cost comparison on the last sheet. If we would go with any of the other companies that submitted bids, you would see those bids were well above. I took October of last year because that was the month that we had the most student days that was our highest bill. So I looked at the hours, and you can see on there that the Star Schools, the company that we currently use, was well under some of those other words. So I'd like to continue using them for another 3 years.
I think I read it, this rate is locked in for 3 years, right?
Yes, and they do not increase the rate over the 3 years, whereas I think every of the other companies did, an increase
Right.
2% or depending on how many students
Yeah, that's
they
right.
serviced, so. And that rate has been the same since 2016. They haven't increased their rate, so.
Great.
Yeah. So, I have a great rapport with the therapist that we currently have. The person that runs their program, I could call her at 12 o'clock tonight and say, hey, we need somebody to come in tomorrow for a speech therapist, and she would answer and make sure we had somebody there. So.
Any additional questions? Need a motion to approve continuing services to Star School Services at the hourly bid rate of $55 per hour for therapists and $45 per hour for assistants for 22-23, 23-24, and 24-25 school years.
So moved. Second that.
There's a motion, second. Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, the next item is motion to accept is the first reading of policy update 2022A. Just a quick comment. One of the things that we do as a school district is we're a member of the MSBA organization, and one of the benefits of that is they look at state law, and then as part of our policy service, and then provide us updates to our policy per whatever the state law is. So when you see a bill every year for our Missouri School Board Association, part of that money is for this policy update, which basically saves us from having to hire lawyers and update our policies. So that's what we're looking at now, is some of the updates they provided based upon state laws. So anyway, so we'll go through these policies one at a time. There's not too many here. Usually we get a different one. But the first one is EBBC. Any question? You want to pull that one up? Does anybody have any questions on this one?
Do we have the capability to provide that specific room in our building?
We will let July 1st.
Okay, great.
That will happen.
It's very specific, so yes,
Yes.
great.
Yes.
Yeah, so basically this is not pretty. Okay, any other questions on that one? Next one would be GCBDA. And again, my question on this one is, now that with the Missouri School Board Association change of this one and the policy committee recommendations for that, what gets overlaid in this based on what you did in the policy committee? That's what I was trying to ask earlier.
Yeah, there's just one sentence I have about holiday, underneath holiday, the winter, yeah. See that red right there by the blue?
Yeah.
And winter break is defined, that's the only sentence.
Okay, that's one sentence.
That's the only thing I have, yeah.
Okay, everything else is MSBA and that was yours?
Yes, sir.
So that was your changes are incorporated in totals. That's all I need to hear. Okay, so any questions on that policy? Okay, the next one is GDBDA. Any questions on this one? All right, next one. This one I got a question on. So this one says districts that are using a custom version of this policy that allows corporal, we don't allow corporal punishment.
We're not using the custom.
Yeah, we're not using the custom one, okay. So that's just, everybody be crystal clear, we're not using corporal punishment. All right. So, any questions on this one? Okay, the last one is JGGA. Again, this is because of state law, it's getting changed. Any questions on this one? Okay, hearing none, I need a motion to accept the first reading of policy update 2022A per MSBA's recommendation.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second, I'll second it. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? 7-0. One is, every year we do a board self-evaluation. So the only, I think Chris wanted to, we'll let Chris drive this conversation a little bit, because one of the questions we want to ask ourselves in this evaluation is about public engagement by the board, which we don't have a question in here for that, and what the board feels. So, Chris, you want to drive that conversation?
Yeah, and it was really, and I appreciate you handing it off to me, but really it comes from the conversation about public engagement going into this election cycle. But then prior to and after the election cycle, three different board members reached out and said, you know, with reflections on that topic of public engagement. And so we were looking for a place where the board could discuss that. And my suggestion was, it's a perfect place for the board evaluation. And so perhaps add a question that's probably looks like, I think it was, which one's the engaging the public, engaging our like local and state, what number is it?
Number 4.
Number 4?
Yeah.
Yeah, something that looks pretty close to question 4. And then that way the board, you can self-assess. That'd be slated for next month. I believe we come right back and hit that. That'd be slated for next month, where, you know, you can, of course, discuss all those, but there'll probably be a couple that stand out. But whether the board assesses themselves to very much agree that they're, you know, fully engaging or not, that might be one that you kind of highlight to say, okay, because we've had 3 board members that have wanted to talk about that individually with me. Whenever I talked to the president about that, we thought that might be a good thing to add, and then have a good full discussion publicly next month. And that's a suggestion.
So what happens is, this evaluation would be done this month, and when would it need to be turned back into you?
Amy will give us a timeline on that, but probably, you know, what, 2 or 3, we need a week or 2?
Yeah, we usually open it up for about 2 weeks.
So-
You gonna send out a survey, Lucky?
Yeah, it'll be just like in the years past.
Yeah.
They'll send you the link and you fill out the survey and then.
Okay, so you're gonna add the question. Does everybody agree with that? Add the question.
Yes.
Please.
Anything specific or just kind of mirror to that question 4? Does that sound right? I mean, we know the intent of the question. I know one board member was, you know, to drill down and not to address all that tonight. That's next month's conversation. But, you know, particularly we know we have a changing community. You know, so we're probably engaging with some segment that's been here for a while. And how do we engage with the move-ins of all these rooftops that are going? So if there's something, you know, we'll put that out, what, next week or so, Amy? But if you think of a way to creatively, you know, extract that information, give us a suggestion and we'll put it in there, but otherwise we'll draft it very similar to question 4 and get those out to you soon.
So, everybody okay with that?
Yep.
Yes.
Great.
And then and then just to be crystal clear, the results of the survey will be public, you know, the aggregate will be public document for everyone. Okay, so, was there an action item there or just a discussion?
No, we can add that.
All right.
Too.
Okay, last one before the consent is the quarterly financial update. Chris?
Yeah, no surprises there, and you know, we haven't anticipated these surprises really throughout the entire year. Everything, as you can see there, the really nice and easy way to look at that, and Connie's not here, right? Okay, I don't think so. Didn't want to start
Brian, you want to
talking-
open up that first document, I think?
is just to look at that percent realized, so you can see everything's on track. You know, if there's a number that stands out, this is a process that Connie or I will go to, like that current tax, or excuse me, like that 5198 miscellaneous, you go, oh my goodness, 332%. Well, first of all, it's going to be over. But secondly, you're talking about a very small line item of $6,000, so we could have one grant that busts that budget, you know. So you kind of look at that percentage and then go over and look at the total sum number. And, you know, revenues look really, really solid. Expenditures, no surprise on that. Probably the question, we know the state is flush with cash, and there's not going to be any withholds down the stretch of the last quarter here. Looking at another really good fiscal year. So outside of, you know, obviously, you know, there's a lot of experts calling for a correction, if not a full recession. We're conscious of that, but the district just couldn't be in a better position moving forward. This doesn't address that, but that's only going to be even healthier in terms of fiscal standpoint with the strategy that we've employed with our ESSER money. As you'll remember, we supported the salaries for that, levied that in Fund 4 to build balances there to help, outside of what Joey even talked about. We'll have some cash on hand outside of the bond proceeds and the lease purchase certificates to do anything else that we might do. Now, I'm not talking about millions, but I might be talking about $1 million, and maybe millions if you count 2 million. So that's kind of our target, is somewhere between 1.5 and 2 million to have over in Fund 4 after we supplanted the ESSER dollars.
Okay, any other questions on this? We need a motion. Do we need a motion on this one? No. It's information.
Informational.
Okay, any more questions on the quarterly financial update? Okay, consent agenda. Does anybody want to pull anything?
Yes.
Okay, which one?
E, G, and J.
E, athletic base salaries. G, extra duty extended contract hours. And J, highway F, property annexation. Okay, anything else? Okay, it's the obligatory look at your employment and make sure you're not related to anybody. Nobody's related to anybody? Okay, that gets that 4th degree of separation. All right. So I need a motion to approve the consent agenda, sans item E, G, and J.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? I heard 7-0. Okay, item E. Dave?
On E, my question is, Jeremy, do you do these? Do you put these together?
Veronica does.
Okay.
Yeah.
You give us the first one that's on the list, open weight room, 2%, and then you give us what it would cost at the step 1 of the basis, right?
Correct.
Can we add, do we know who that person is?
On that,
do we know who's gonna be doing the open weight room in winter? And surely we know their salary. Can you give us an actual cost over on the right?
on the ones we know for sure.
Not this year, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah, let me make a note. So you want actual dollars, is what you want?
Because if you had to guess on an average, where would our salary be in terms of base?
I mean, most of our staff is within the, 1 to 11 years, majority of our staff, and a lot of our coaches are in that as well.
So I didn't have any idea. That's
Yeah,
why.
it's gonna be towards the step 1 to 12, I would say a majority of them are. don't get me wrong, we've got some coaches that have been around here forever, but a majority of them are gonna be.
Yeah, so any individual coach could definitely shoot that up there.
Yeah. But no, I'll talk to Veronica and see what we can put together.
Okay, any other questions on item E? Okay, I need a motion to approve, the 22-23 athletic based salary schedule.
So moved.
Okay. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? I'm assuming it's the same question under item G, Dave?
No.
Okay.
Hey, would you want it under item G though? Would it make more sense to be here?
It would,
Okay.
yeah. My question on item G is, there is a lot of open spots there. Do we have a plan for filling those spots?
We're working on it, but it is a concern of ours. I will say, and Jeremy, Dr. Wade can speak more historically about this, and also it's right in his lap. We're always concerned about this time of year. You know, we've always got a lot of yellow there. This year might be a little bit more yellow, Dr. Wade, or is it about in the ballpark?
We're trending like we have. I mean, there's not a lot of movement in March. Right now, there's been a lot of movement in the last 2 weeks or so, and that's been our norm. You know, I'd say the good side of it is we have some openings, and we have some key openings that help us get some coaches right now. And so there's a hope that a couple of these openings will foster multiple coaches out of one teaching position. So, you know, we had nuts and bolts this morning. Bo was talking about it. We're in the midst of interviews, and so, you know, Bo being a part of those interviews is huge from here on in, because we do have multiple varsity sport head coaching positions. But like I said, we have a couple positions that lean themselves to getting some coaches out of them that we have open right now. So while I don't like having open positions, we do have some good ones to get some coaching. So I'm hoping the yellow will be a lot better come May board meeting. But we're pretty much like we've been the last couple of years.
So optimism that we do have some positions potentially.
Always.
You know, this comes up pretty frequently, you know, but I guess an arching strategy that Dr. Wade has employed, I wasn't prepared to talk about that, but is that he's alluded to it in getting our AD more active in the recruitment of our teaching staff, because obviously whenever our principals are in there, they're very focused to, and that's where our focus needs to be, to what that teacher's gonna bring in terms of academic performance. There is a reality that we have taken a lot of pride in providing a lot of opportunities for our students. And when you do that, it creates these coaching positions that are difficult to fill, because there are a lot of people that just want to teach. And so it's a challenge. So that's always a good feeling to bring on an extracurricular, you know, kind of looking ahead. We have to think, okay, are we going to be able to fill that? You know?
I know we have some out of district coaches or coaches that aren't teachers. How do we promote that to our parents and our community? If we had a parent that was interested in coaching one of these things, how do they know to apply and where that, you know, how to do that, what the criteria is?
So Amy does a good job of getting it on our web page, but also tweeting out these things as well. You know, Bo has conversations with coaches, and they know some parents sometimes that might do Little League or something, so they talk to them about that. The other thing that I wanted to mention that Dr. Berger alluded to is we've got to, and that's one of the talks we've had, is we've got to get middle school people coaching middle school sports and high school people coaching high school sports. And so when we have that crossover, we have, you know, some of our elementary coaching varsity, it makes it more difficult. So really focusing in on who we bring in as teachers in each building and making sure that we align them with some activities or coaching opportunities, because they have buy-in with those kids want to see those people, you know, as their coaches. But yeah, we're pretty much where we're at. I mean, this is the worst month usually is April. Hopefully in May it'll start coming together, and then, like, you know, in June we always have one or two, oh, I didn't see that happening, and then what are we going to do, and scramble kind of thing. Hopefully that won't happen, but that's how it's been lately.
One more question on sorry, is this the time that you would add or take away extended days? Or does that come, is it too late or is this the time to do that?
I'm probably not tracking, those would be typically their contract.
It's on this list.
It's on this one.
And it will, and so is it, what, the question?
Our extended day list.
Oh, gotcha, okay, I'm sorry, yes.
So he's wanting to know if you can change, like, for instance, if they don't have FFA, she has 30 days, he wants to know if we go to 40 or 50 or 60 or whatever, for instance, on that.
Yeah, I would, I mean, the only thing I would say is tonight might be tough for us, because I don't know if we're talking about increasing or reducing, then that's gonna have implications. So probably what's been proposed, there's been some work put into that in terms of out of Dr. Way's office in terms of negotiation or, so I'm not following exactly where you're at or if it's
Sure,
specific.
so Austin kind of hit the nail on the head as far as like in the FFA position, if you can add more days to that contract. You know, I think if we're gonna try to grow a program, 30 days is pretty minimal to do that. The growing of the program is done when school is not in session, when it's summertime, is when that program, you know, needs to be grown.
So, Dr. Way may feel able to add to this, but let me say this. So, there's been a lot of work into that. In other words, during recruitment, and I'm not pointing on that position for recruitment. It may be we've got a person that's what they wanted to work, 30 days, you know, and that was what we agreed to, and that's why they're coming to our district, and then they're, you know, Dr. Way may have had a conversation that if we grow it, you have to be receptive to adding 10 days.
That's why I'm asking.
Yeah, yeah. So that, I think our candidate, I want to be real careful here because we're kind of starting to talk a little bit about personnel. I want to be, again, walk that slippery slope. I think everybody in this group is aware of how many days they have slated, and there's been no talk that I'm aware of, that Dr. Way's coming over to my office and said that there was the high school band director or down to the special ed processing coordinator asked for more or less days. I'm unaware of any of that. Help me out a little, Dr. Way, is that all?
Yeah, I mean, the only other thing I can add to that without getting too detailed is if for some reason the board wanted to give me a range on certain things, then I can talk with people and say, hey, you know, I'm open to this, but like Dr. Berger said, sometimes when you talk to them, some people want the 12-month contract and some people want the 5 extra days. You know, it depends on their situation, how many babies they have at home and that kind of thing, you know,
Well,
so.
I think the conversation that Dave probably wants you to have is talk to the individual and say, hey, look, we're looking to grow the program, what do you need?
Yeah, and I'll throw in there that when Dr. Way wanders over to my office and we've even talked day range, I start at the low end. Now, that doesn't mean that we can't grow into more, you know, so I'll you know, if there was a high school system and that certainly wasn't in play, and Dr. Way came over and said, our range is 5 to 20, what do you want to do? I say 5. That's an easy answer for me. But he knows, and we've got that, you know, he's got that range to work with, and he's talking about, and certainly we're going to give people the incentive that if they can grow it, you know, I think that's a great thing to, because it's harder to take them back than it is to give them, you know, kind of mentality I would guess.
That answered my question.
Anything else on item G? Can I need a motion to approve the 22-23 extra duty extended contract list?
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? I heard 7-0. Item J, highway property annexation.
My question with this is this a time-sensitive issue? Can this be tabled for another meeting where we can find out a little more about the permitting process and the zoning process, whether it's in the city or the county?
I do not know. I can even text Art right now, but I know that there is a P&Z meeting next Thursday because Art mentioned it. I don't know if that's pending approval. You know, it's slated for City
Would
council
that
approval.
be with the county or the city?
That's what the city, I believe, is that correct? City.
So my question, Dave, to you is, why, I mean, I think we should just go into the city. The reason being, I think, just from an operational perspective, if the police have to show up, it's the city police that show up. It's not the county police that show up.
What's the difference?
I think, my perspective, it could be time to respond or whatever.
And maybe I'm crazy when I'm looking at it, but if something happened, I mean, would it even be possible to have a school and part of it only be in the city and part of it be in the county? Or for what Dave's talking about, we'd have to back the city off of that property altogether? I mean, if we were gonna go a different direction.
I wouldn't think you could.
I wouldn't think so
because the way it's
either.
already- The city's gonna get what's there.
That's right, they're not gonna give it up.
But I just don't know if I see the incentive of going to the city.
I can't, maybe there's more questions that need to be answered, but if it literally goes through what looks to me like the middle of where the building's gonna be. So, I don't know how that would even be manageable for permits or for something happening on the ground.
And I guess just from a context point of view, and there absolutely, I think Heidi's nailed it, that if there's more questions to be answered, then they need to be asked and answered. But it's always I mean, since I've been around, we've always had that assumption, although we've talked about it. Yeah, I remember the conversation being early on, is the F-highway in the city limits? We had to flesh that out, some long time ago. So from my perspective, it's always assumed, and I never knew of a reason why not to, as recently as, and that's not the first time I was asked, but not this meeting that we had the architect, the meeting before, I had asked Art to clarify here what the advantages were. Now, he went over those advantages with me verbally in that meeting, and then they made it into his PowerPoint, so I thought that might at least be on the board's radar. I'm not opposed, obviously, to ask more questions, but I don't know what they are. I mean, he's satisfied, my questions. And then I think that, I was not thinking about the advantage that you mentioned until you mentioned it, and that was the having law enforcement, in terms of proximity and what we would get response time there. There's one element, I'm losing my word on the start way, but commissioning, right? Our officers are currently commissioned with Wright City.
SROs.
Yeah, our SROs are too. So I'm sure though that none of those things are things that we can't do with the county. We've never had conversations with the sheriff along those.
Sure. And maybe I'm probably the only one that thinks that way. I just didn't know, what the advantages were to annex into the city.
Kind of following him, except I think the question is, how does it hurt us if we don't? If we don't annex to the city, and for whatever reason, what does that do?
Well, Art was not specific about it, but he just mentioned that if we were in two different, one was, he didn't want to scrap it. Yeah, and it created permitting issues.
To work with two different permits, and the water and electricity stuff.
Is the property purchased from two different owners?
No.
Well, I think the town of Earl and Bob Lewis owned it when we bought it.
But why would the city have part of it, not all of it, is what I'm asking.
I have no idea.
Does it go to a specific road?
That's a good point.
And I just actually got a text from a council member who has ear to the ground on this conversation. P&Z just met, won't be for another month. Also, if the school is not in the city, no police protection or SRO. It's good. And I say, again, I'm not, we've never looked at the county in terms of that issue. I can't imagine there being issues. I know sometimes, if it were a brand new sheriff or something, maybe more hesitant about partnering with us. But we do have 2 contracts with SROs current that are commissioned with the city that are just reimbursements. So we create a little complication.
Well, I think the issue with East being in Forestville, I mean, our SROs have authority over East within the Forestville city limits.
So,
Commissions, yeah.
yeah, so now you're talking about having to do it with the county. I mean, I think you just create more headaches than you do. I think the prudent thing is you go in the city and just let it all be one jurisdiction, and I think it makes life easier on him. Going forward, it's gonna make life easier on, and even after the building's built and we're administering it, it makes the life easier, I think.
But going forward, you have a portion of your property that's still laying idle. Right? The side of Highway F.
Yeah, but I could get, I mean, but again, there is no penalty because there's no tax issues.
I know that, but it may restrict what you wanna do on that property at a later date.
Okay, so your argument, your argument is, if we later, let's say we wanted to sell that, because we're not gonna use it for whatever reason.
Do whatever.
Then the fact that if it's in the city, there could potentially be more restrictions on it versus if it's in the county. So that's where you're coming.
Potentially, yes.
Art is responding, he says he's not sure if there's any implications, and we can run it down tomorrow. You know, and so there's never, if there is hesitation among the board, I understand that, and that you know, you table the issue, and it could cause reconvening of the board special board meeting on that one issue. But I've got to have the specific questions asked. I mean.
So to be fair, pull up the map of the map. The one that has the city on it, and the city overlaid on it. So our, Dave's question is, if we don't, some of that land is never gonna be usable by the school district, is his question.
No, there is none of that land that is not gonna be usable by the school district.
But not in 25.
Not in this proposal, that is correct.
Yeah, but sometime in the future,
We will want it all.
we'll never wanna sell anything off.
No, nothing significant, and, you know, nothing significant. Yeah.
So at some point in the future, all that land will be used, that's usable by the school district will be used. I mean, again, not in 2025, but, because Dave's point, and it's a legitimate point, is if some of that land is never gonna be usable by the district, then why would you incorporate it and then make it harder to sell in the future if you want to sell it? That's Dave's question. But if it's all gonna be used eventually, let's say in 2034, eventually, then bringing it in is okay. That's his question.
And I'm gonna disagree with you a little bit, Dr. Berger. We don't know what that school is gonna need in X amount of years. Everything that I've seen proposed, the 2025 high school and the additions that are gonna come, whenever they come.
Correct.
Are gonna be more on the Relker side of the property, am I correct?
That is absolutely.
So you're envisioning 20 years out that will be needed for the school? That's what I'm saying, I think that's gonna be hard to envision because we don't know where the growth is gonna be.
I'm usually good at checking myself to say I don't know what the future is, but I didn't on that. But I can't, there's nothing that, of course, we don't have a master plan for the district. So when that's developed, I always thought that east side of the property would have a play, you know, in terms of the master plan that we talked a little bit about, getting that to the board by this time next year. It's gonna be one of our things that's a priority. So I can't envision a master plan that does not optimize that other side of the property because of the highway frontage, its proximity, all the benefits that we have in this 85 acres. But you're exactly right. Who knows? You know, in 10, 15 years, there could be a change. You know, I'm still, it's still not clear to me what the disadvantage is to annexing it into the city, but certainly there are some unknowns.
That's why I just thought it could at least be tabled at the next meeting and kind of maybe a little more information and found out as far as, you know, which way.
But just for clarity, what the specific questions that you're gonna want me to run down are what, and I'll make sure they are.
You know, find out, I guess, the planning and zoning rules and regulations for the city and the county.
So Dave,
real quick question for you. Would you then be asking to just have the part that we're gonna build on be annexed to the city and leave the rest? Because I don't think there's really an option otherwise. You don't think
Well,
we can do-
apparently you can, because they've cut this ground that we got already.
But you're okay with annexing the part that we're gonna build on, right? Because I think that the nightmare
Yeah,
that would be
I
caught,
agree.
okay,
You know, so where the line goes across the top of it, where it says
Uh-huh.
new, right?
Uh-huh.
Maybe follow the line that goes between new and high school, if that would catch everything that we're gonna build on and run that to our southern border.
you wanna know if that's an option, because I don't think not
See the
doing
advantage
it
of that.
is, the only thing I can see is for future use, like he's saying, but I don't know. I don't know if that's an advantage or not.
But also if we put that road through,
Right.
and we
That's
want
kind
the
of
city.
Yeah, you can give them that road.
I don't see the advantage of that.
So,
Because we know we're gonna use that. I mean, it's pretty obvious that we're going to use it.
Are you, I mean, what if the growth all goes north down Bell Road? And maybe that's where the next high school or the next middle school or whatever needs to be. You know, where you can opt out of that property that's not being used to buy property where you need a building built.
So I've got one question, that is, the differences between, P and Z zoning for county or city, right? Is there another question? And then is there an option for us to split the property? Okay.
and then, I mean, I guess my question while we're asking is, if we built that road and if the city would take it, if we gave it to them, would they still perform? Because it's gonna be kind of in the middle of the county then. For road maintenance.
That road, and then the city has no obligation or no incentive to help it.
Does that play?
But they don't have a road that connects it anywhere.
Yeah, they
Coming
don't.
down Highway F.
No, they have an incentive for the road, that's why it was brought to us, but,
But there'll still be a piece there that's not in the city.
No, but if
The
they,
piece just north of us, coming down Highway F.
Right.
but they would annex all that.
They can't.
Would they?
They
That's
can't
not our
annex the
property.
piece that's northeast of us.
No, but the road is on our property.
yeah, it's on our.
Correct.
Yeah, they
They
can
still
have the road, we can give them the road.
Yeah, but the thing is, that
But
road
they
would
still
have-
can't connect the dots from the city of Wright City to the new road on the school's property. Cause they don't have the piece on this north,
Right.
on the northeast corner.
Would they have to have that, Dave?
Well, if
Would
you're
they just
gonna,
pick the
if
road?
you're connecting the dots, if they're trying to make their city boundaries,
You mean just, it's not symmetrical, obviously, but just to chunk it off, so to speak? Okay. So I'm just gonna ask east-west implications. If that, and, we probably could, I'll solicit an update on that, that's getting traction at the city too. And then
So when's our next plan and zoning meeting?
Thursday, that's what I think what I heard.
Well, then the issue is,
The board meeting should be on Thursday, planning and zoning meetings are on Monday.
Okay.
so, yeah,
Yeah, it was
but
last
the
time.
issue about having another board meeting.
For us.
For us, and, we have to have a special board meeting, I mean, so the first question here is, I guess, okay, Dave's offered some points to consider. The question to the board is, do we want to go ahead with an annexation, or do you want to go with a postponement? I mean, Dave's, points aside, I mean, there could either be a motion to do the annexation, we can vote on it, or there could be a motion to postpone till the next meeting, and we can vote on that.
So just some clarity on the timetable. So is the planning and zoning meeting this coming Monday, or is that another month?
Another month.
So we really have some time in all
Yeah, but the
reality.
19th, by the time you get to the 19th, the other planning and zoning meeting's gonna already
So
occur.
we would have to have a special meeting.
We have to have a special meeting to do all.
I'm not necessarily opposed to that. I think, more information is better than not enough.
Okay, I need a motion.
I make a motion to postpone it until next meeting.
I'll second that.
Motion, Robert's rules is postpone. Table is you bring it up back in the same meeting, postpone, you go into a future meeting.
It's a 4-year parliamentarian, but I'm not gonna debate this with you. Maybe it's 3 years, I can't even remember.
All right, so the question is postpone until, so when is the next, planning and zoning meeting?
We think, and
Well, that's, because
Corresponding date.
if I have to call a special board meeting, then I'll call it. Because we gotta have that decision.
And I guess the next question is, does it have to be done before their next meeting?
Well, I think if we're,
I lose it. Back to
I
my, we
mean,
know.
if we have to get permits in 2 different places, I don't know how much that is, but.
Yeah,
That doesn't seem like a cost
there's cost to us.
Mhm.
All right, so the issue on the table, there's a motion to postpone till a special board meeting in May to be determined. Is there a second? Who seconded that? Okay, motion and second. I think this is gonna be a split vote, so let's make sure we get our count right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I heard 5 ayes. Aaron, Michael, Heidi, Dave, and Alice. Is that correct? You didn't vote. I hear 4. Okay, and those opposed? Aye. Okay, motion passes 4-3.
we'll get those 3 things answered for you, and then maybe the time will pan out where we don't have that special meeting, so I'll make sure I have that question too.
And is there, pricing on the permits? I assume you'll have that as well.
I'll run the meeting.
On the annexing.
Okay. Okay, next session, we go into closed session. In accordance with the provision of section 16021, the revised statute of Missouri, the R2 Board of Education will meet in closed session in order to discuss 61021. 14, records that are protected from disclosure by law. I need a motion and a second.
Second.
Okay, did you get the people? Yeah. Any more discussion? Roll call. Austin, yes?
Yes.
Marion?
Yes.
Okay, we're in closed session, 5-minute Bible break, and then we'll be back in 9 o'clock.